there were great cataclysms. Nuclear weapons were unleashed, pitting brother against brother. Their planet was devastated, and from those ashes, like a phoenix, new bloodlines of kings and queens arose to establish a new order. Their atmosphere had been breached, with volcanoes belching and thinning the air of Nibiru. During the reign of Anshar and Kishar, pestilence appeared, which they could not overcome. Their son ascended to the throne, becoming the 6th dynasty ruler of Nibiru. Born with great understanding, he was imbued with knowledge from birth, which he used to address the afflictions of his people. He devoted considerable time to studying the orbit of Nibiru and its looping around the sun. He and his family members explored planets of dazzling beauty, seeking cures for their atmospheric afflictions. Each planet he encountered was named after ancestral forefathers, regarded as heavenly couples. Anshar and Kishar were the largest planets beyond the Nibiru orbit, likened to twin planets, while Gaga acted as a protective messenger in the heavens, shielding other celestial bodies from intrusion. With each orbit, Nibiru's atmosphere suffered more breaches, prompting debates among the learned councils about how to mend the atmospheric wounds. Attempts were made to create a new shield to protect the planet. The belching volcanoes, one of the causes of the atmospheric depletion, were studied. It was eventually understood how to harness these volcanoes to address the problem effectively. Nibiru, a planet with a wide orbit, emerges as a large reddish celestial body traversing the sun. It experiences extremes of cold and warmth, its thick atmosphere sustained by constant volcanic eruptions. This atmosphere acts as a protective layer, retaining heat during cold periods and shielding the planet when warm. Transitional periods see intense rainfall, ensuring the continuity of lakes and rivers, nurturing a lush vegetation that supports a vibrant ecosystem. From this greenery, diverse life forms emerge, evolving, both aquatic and terrestrial. Among them are the Anunnaki, arising naturally like an eternal seed destined to proliferate. Over time, the Anunnaki populate valleys, plains, and mountains, building homes and establishing communities that blossom into civilizations. However, rivalries soon lead to the first major war between the northern and southern regions, transforming the lush vegetation into formidable weapons and giving rise to armies. A prolonged and fierce battle ensues, bringing death and destruction across the land. Desolation prevails for many orbits until a truce is declared, and cries for peace lead to the decision for a unified rule under a single king, chosen from either the north or the south, with a consort from the opposite region to ensure unity. The selected ruler, a formidable northern warrior named An, and his southern queen, Antu, bring about a golden era of restored order, prosperity, and the establishment of laws. An and Antu birthed 3 sons, with Enki as their firstborn. Despite concubines populating the palace, Enki solely ruled until his demise ended the emerging dynasty. The mantle then passed to the middle son, Anib, despite his younger status, earning him the title, marking his central place among siblings. Anib wed Ninib, the esteemed lady of Ib, and their union bore Anshargal, who ascended as Nibiru's 4th king with his half-sister, Kishargal, as queen. Anshargal's reign brought profound insights into Nibiru, leading to the creation of the Shah, a time unit divided into 10 segments. His era saw the inception of 2 major festivals, celebrating Nibiru's nearest and furthest orbital points from the sun, fostering unity across realms. This period also established pivotal laws on marriage, inheritance, and tribal customs, decreeing that a legitimate first wife's offspring would inherit leadership, thereby codifying succession. However, reintroducing concubines during Anshargal's rule sparked succession crises as questions of legitimacy arose, when the firstborn was not from the official wife. Kishargal, the queen, championed the law of the seed, arguing her son's rightful claim to the throne due to the royal lineage from both parents, despite his not being the eldest. This law was ratified, positioning their son Ansha as the rightful successor, thus resolving the contention between birthright and lawful wedlock. Ansha's rule, however, faced agricultural decline, propelling scholars to seek explanations ranging from celestial fate to atmospheric anomalies caused by a decline in volcanic activities. This situation worsened under his successor, Enshar, who was tasked with identifying remedies, including the proposal to stimulate volcanic eruptions artificially. As these problems persisted, Duru, born of Enshar and a concubine, took the throne amid controversies over his bloodline and his unconventional choice in a non-royal wife. His reign saw such disarray that the royal lineage and succession practices were fundamentally questioned. The kingdom's plight led to a desperate measure proposed by scholars, mining gold from the hammered bracelet to fortify Nibiru's atmosphere. But under King Lama, who was adopted by Duru, inertia prevailed despite escalating crises. Ultimately, Alalu, seizing the moment of discontent, overthrew Lama, killing him, claiming kingship by right of the ancient law of the seed, tracing his lineage back to Anshagal's era. Despite contestation, Alalu's rule was solidified by ancestral ties. Alalu declared with bold defiance that the law of the seed was meaningless, a concocted statute to rob the throne from its rightful heir, Alam, the eldest son of Anshagal and Alalu's ancestor. As such, he claimed the Nibiru throne was his by birthright. The seven who judge mulled over his words and referred the case to the Council of Councillors. Despite scouring the records, Alam's name was absent. "But I am of his lineage," Alalu asserted, "bearer of the royal blood." The law of succession had been supplanted by the law of the seed, crafted to disinherit the rightful heir, he argued. Moved by Alalu's fervent speech, the councillors required him to swear an oath, risking his life for his claim. Thus, Alalu was anointed king of Nibiru. All realms were informed of this decision, yet one prince objected. He was Anu, claiming descent from An, keeper of the divine lineage. "I am Anu of An's seed," he stated, brandishing his ancestral proofs. Many supported Anu's right to rule, but others cautioned patience, advocating for consultation with Alalu. Graciously, Alalu welcomed Anu, proposing, though from different lines, both royal, "Together, let's enrich Nibiru. I will remain king. You shall be the crown prince, my successor. To solidify this pact, your son shall wed my daughter." By unanimous consent, Alalu retained the throne. Alalu commanded the construction of more celestial vessels to mine gold from the hammered bracelet, yet none returned. In desperation, he ordered, "Unleash the terror weapons to awaken Nibiru's core and stir the volcanoes." The deed was done. Mountains rocked, valleys trembled, but still, no rain fell, and fierce winds swept through. Inside the royal palace, Anu served under Alalu, not as a prince, but as a subordinate. The populace of Nibiru, disillusioned, ceased their worship in the cities. Alalu's reign brought suffering instead of solace. Yet, he gripped the throne tightly. In the 9th Shah, Anu rose to challenge Alalu's reign hand-to-hand combat. Anu defeated Alalu, beaten and broken, dropped to his knees, vanquished in the duel. The crowd roared as Anu was declared the new king and ushered to the palace. Alalu, however, did not reappear. Fearful of his imminent death, similar to the fate of those he had previously overthrown, he stealthily moved through the throng, seeking one of the celestial ships equipped with weaponry. Climbing aboard, he activated the ship and took flight, escaping from Nibiru unnoticed. heading towards an uncharted world. From his spacecraft, Alalu admired Nibiru receding into the distance. Its surface still showed signs of volcanic activity, providing a faint yet captivating glow. As he ventured deeper into space, planets named by King Enshar after ancient ancestors came into view. Pluto welcomed him first, followed by the striking blue of Neptune, which appeared as a good sign. The journey then took him past Uranus and towards Saturn, whose magnificent rings captivated him. However, as Jupiter loomed large, blocking out the sun and casting a dark shadow over his ship, Alalu's direction faltered. Regaining his bearings, he remembered the hammered bracelet, an asteroid belt known for destroying many who dared cross it. Remembering the legends, Alalu prepared for battle. Using his ship's weapons, he managed to clear a path through the asteroids, allowing him safe passage. With the obstacle navigated, Mars came into view, its reddish hue unmistakable. Alalu pressed on, soon catching sight of Earth, divided into poles of white and lands of blues and browns. Activating his ship's deep scanning equipment, Alalu directed the penetrating ray earthward. To his astonishment, the beam revealed vast deposits of gleaming gold. "I've found it! I've found it!" he shouted triumphantly. Yet swiftly, his elation turned to anxiety over the dangers of landing. A ground landing might trigger an explosion, while a water landing could submerge and trap him. As time dwindled and gravitational forces intensified, his ship quaked ominously. Suddenly, the vessel lurched violently. The imminent crash sent Alalu's heart racing, culminating in a deafening crash accompanied by blinding lights. Knocked unconscious, Alalu lay lifeless. After a timeless pause, he slowly regained consciousness, miraculously alive. This marked the moment the first Anunnaki, Alalu, set foot on Earth, or Ki as they named it. Awakening fully, Alalu surveyed his new environment. His ship had settled on solid ground near expansive marshes. Dressed in a suit resembling a fish and an eagle's helmet, he ventured into the chilling, swampy terrain. Isolation weighed on him. The familiar faces of Nibiru were absent, intensifying his solitude. Memories of his past, his rule, the confrontation with Anu, and the hazards he had braved flooded his thoughts. Was this exile permanent? Racked by sorrow, Alalu retreated to his ship for solace and sustenance, soon falling into a deep, exhausted sleep. Reflecting on his storied past and vast knowledge gained from ancestors like Anshargal and peers like Enshar, Alalu had transformed from a mere participant to a keeper of profound cosmic secrets. These secrets propelled him beyond the hammered bracelet to this uncharted world. Before creation, in the cosmic void, existed only Apsu, the primordial source. With no celestial gods above or divine beings below, Apsu alone dominated. Then, conjuring the primordial waters with Apsu, a powerful spell birthed Tiamat, his celestial consort, brimming with life-giving waters. Together, they spawned the divine progenitors of the planets Alalu now knew. Tiamat, restless from the lack of defined fates or orbits for her celestial offspring, rebelled against Apsu, declaring their son Kingu as sovereign and instigating a celestial war. During this tumultuous era, a new deity emerged from the solar abyss bearing the seed of life. Named Nibiru, this entity would seek its own destiny, ultimately confronting Tiamat. In a cataclysmic battle, Nibiru obliterated Tiamat, stabilizing celestial order and creating Earth, or Kai, and setting the heavens' paths. Discovering gold on the hammered bracelet, Alalu saw the truth of ancient prophecies. Reinvigorated, he woke from his slumber, stepping out to a brightness unmatched by any Nibirian sun. Testing Ki's air and finding it breathable, Alalu ventured forth without his suit. The vibrant ecosystem, water sources, and new life forms like none he'd seen on Nibiru awaited his exploration. Filled with newfound resolve and the validation of his celestial heritage, Alalu prepared to proclaim his discovery to Nibiru. Holding the tablet of destinies, he declared, "Attention Nibiru, your former king has found salvation and supremacy in Ki. Gold abounds here, and with it, the future of Nibiru rests in my hands. Acknowledge your new ruler, for I hold the key to our destiny." With this, Alalu was ready to dictate the terms of a new era. "The fate of Nibiru rests in my hands, and you must heed my terms," Alalu declared with authority. The news of Alalu's survival reached the royal palace on Nibiru and spread like wildfire through radio communications. Anu, along with his counselors and sages, was taken aback. They had all presumed Alalu was dead. Commanders were swiftly instructed to inspect all ships, confirming that one had indeed disappeared, presumably taken by Alalu. With this confirmation, Anu deliberated on his next steps and decided to extend an olive branch to Alalu. "King Anu of Nibiru sends his regards. There was no need for your departure, dear Alalu. Know that my heart harbors no resentment. If gold is truly what you've discovered, let Nibiru's glory be uplifted and our salvation secured." Anu's message relayed. Alalu received Anu's greetings on earth and responded with defiance, stating, "If I am to be the savior, then let Nibiru acknowledge my deeds. Summon the princes to assert my supreme rule. Command the commanders to heed my orders. Crown me as king, and let my name eclipse Anu's on the throne. Let the council affirm my words." Upon hearing Alalu's audacious demands, Nibiru was engulfed in disbelief. How could Anu be dethroned? His advisors were perplexed, pondering Alalu's true whereabouts and the veracity of his gold discovery. Could it be a ruse? During the council assembly, the eldest counselor, once Alalu's mentor, spoke out. Alalu was a diligent pupil who understood the celestial battles, the monstrous Tiamat, and the veins of gold. If he has indeed traversed the hammered bracelet and found his fate on Kai, the seventh planet, he might well have succeeded. Another prince then countered, "Alalu cannot impose conditions. His previous actions brought calamity, and he lost his throne in fair combat. Even if he has discovered gold, its adequacy remains uncertain." Silence fell over the assembly. Enlil, the Lord of Command and Anu's son from his rightful queen, broke the silence. "While Alalu's discovery warrants verification, his terms are unacceptable." Enlil's proposal was transmitted to Alalu, who treated the negotiations like a strategic game. After sending verifiable evidence of his find, including a crystal sample from his journey, Alalu adjusted his stance. "Now that you have proof, crown me as king and obey my commands." His message resonated sharply, alarming the sages. Nonetheless, they confirmed that the location Alalu described was indeed beyond the asteroid belt. The assembly regrouped to deliberate further. Anu's eldest son, Ea, known also as Enki, and married to Alalu's daughter Damkina, suggested a unifying approach. "As both my birth father and father-in-law, let me mediate. I'll secure the gold from Alalu and deliver it to Nibiru. Proclaim him king on earth, and if Nibiru truly benefits, a new duel can decide the rightful ruler." Enki's proposal was met with approval, and Anu decreed, "Let it be so. A new challenge shall determine Alalu's fate. The victor shall rule Nibiru." The decision was conveyed to Alalu, who agreed to the terms. "I will welcome Enki on earth. Let him retrieve the gold, and let the future contest decide Nibiru's throne." Enki then prepared for his mission, choosing to employ water instead of the devastating weapons used by Alalu. This required adjustments to store sufficient water in the ship for the journey and the mission's operations. With everything in place, Enki and 50 chosen heroes set off in the largest celestial ship available, passing the planets that honored Nibiru's royalty, and carefully navigating through the challenging hammered bracelet with jets of water rather than weapons. The mission succeeded in clearing the path, though it consumed more water than anticipated. As the ship approached Earth, Anzu expertly managed its descent onto the planet's waters, heeding Alalu's welcoming transmission. "Make haste," Alalu urged. Upon landing, Enki, without a fish suit, bravely swam to shore, greeted warmly by Alalu, "Welcome, my son-in-law, to a new world." Thus, as night fell on Earth, Alalu and the Anunnaki prepared for the tasks ahead, determined to secure Nibiru's future with the newfound resources of this alien planet, marking the beginning of a critical chapter in their cosmic saga. In the vast reaches of space, Nibiru shone with a deep reddish glow, marked by colossal atmospheric breaches. Its inhabitants, eager for deliverance, awaited the precious gold that Abgal, braving the fiery descent, skillfully piloted to land. Applause erupted as the ship touched down, a heroic sight indeed. King Anu greeted Abgal warmly as he disembarked. Swiftly, the Anunnaki transferred the gold to processing facilities, where it was refined into a fine powder, soon to be dispersed into the atmosphere to mend the planet's wounds. "Salvation has arrived with the gold of salvation," Anu proclaimed amidst a grand assembly. However, beneath the surface of celebration, doubt lingered. Could this golden powder truly mend the atmospheric rifts? As the gold was deployed, initial results were promising. The breaches began to close, sparking joy across the palace. But as the planet neared the sun, the intense solar winds scattered the particles, and the once mended rift tore open once more. Anu's command was urgent. "Abgal, return to Earth at once. We require more gold, and quickly." Nungal and a crew of Anunnaki were to join him, leaving post-haste for Earth. Back on Earth, they were received by Enki and Enlil. Mining resumed immediately, but a troubling realization dawned. The gold reserves were depleting. Enki and Alalu, burdened with worry, pondered over their next move. Where were the hidden reserves of Tiamat's golden veins? Enki took to the skies, scouting the mountains and valleys. His search led him across vast landscapes divided by oceans, until finally, the earth revealed its secrets in a region where dry lands parted and formed a heart-shaped basin. Enki named this rich gold-bearing land Abzu, announcing, "Abundant gold lies in Abzu." This discovery sparked hope back on Nibiru, energizing the assembly to strategize the extraction of this vital resource. Yet, how to efficiently mine this gold remained a daunting question. During a tense assembly, Enlil voiced his concerns, highlighting the monumental task ahead and calling for a tangible plan and evidence of the gold reserves. The assembly was divided until Anu, seizing control, decreed, "Let Enlil lead an expedition to Earth to gather the necessary evidence, and I will go to Earth and oversee the mission and develop a plan." The assembly unanimously supported this decision, setting the stage for a new chapter. Upon Enlil's arrival, Enki greeted him warmly, though Alalu's reception was noticeably cooler. Charged with the mission's leadership, Enlil ordered the construction of specialized ships for the exploration of Abzu. Enki and Abgal led one ship, with Enlil and his lieutenant, Alalgar, following in another. They tested the soil and found gold, albeit mixed with sand and rocks. Back in Eridu, Enlil presented his expansive plan to develop the region, extract the gold, and oversee its transport back to Nibiru. The strategy was meticulous, but sparked a debate between Enki and Enlil over leadership roles and the management of the new settlements. The dispute escalated until Anu intervened, suggesting that luck decide their roles. The outcome designated Enlil as the Lord of Command in Eden, responsible for overseeing the gold extraction and managing the Anunnaki. Enki was named Lord of the Earth and given charge of Abzu. The verdict was conveyed to the assembly of Anunnaki, with Anu expressing optimism. "I will return to Nibiru heartened by our potential for success." Yet Alalu interrupted vehemently. "A crucial matter has been overlooked." His voice thundered through the hall. "Earth's dominion was promised to me upon my discovery of gold. Moreover, I've not relinquished my claim to Nibiru's throne. It's an outrage to share this rule solely among your progeny. You owe me a duel for the throne of Nibiru." Anu, incensed, replied, "Then let us settle this with combat immediately. No more delays. The time for battle is now." What followed was a fierce confrontation, marked by raw primal ferocity. Alalu was swiftly defeated, collapsing to the ground. Anu declared his victory, but in a swift, shocking retaliation, Alalu biting off Anu's genitalia, consuming the poison within, targeting a grievous injury. Stunned, Anu fell, while Enki rushed to his side, and Enlil restrained Alalu. "Let justice be served," Enlil bellowed. Enki interjected, "Justice has been met. He bears his own poison." Alalu was then detained, as dictated by law. Anu, having recovered, summoned the Council of Seven to deliberate. Seated among his trusted advisors, the discussion of Alalu's fate unfolded. "He has admitted to his crimes through his actions," declared Enlil, advocating for the harshest sentence. Yet, Enki suggested a natural end. "Death will find him. He sealed his fate." Anu then pronounced a stern decree. Alalu shall die in exile. This was unanimously agreed upon. Anu detailed further, "When I return to Nibiru, Alalu will join me aboard my ship. Yet he shall never step foot on Nibiru again. Instead, he will spend his remaining days isolated on Lamu." The plan was set, and Anu made his farewells as the royal lineage departed Earth. As they neared Lamu for Alalu's exile, Anzu declared his intention to stay by Alalu's side until the end, to witness his last moments and ensure a dignified burial. "I shall be remembered as the king's companion in exile, facing the unknown with bravery." Moved by Anzu's loyalty, Anu swore an oath. "Should you survive until my next visit, I will make you the ruler of Lamu and command its station." Grateful, Anzu accepted, and preparations for their stay began. Anu's ship, equipped with provisions and special suits, embarked towards Lamu, fading into the cosmos. Alalu's reign on Nibiru and his command on Earth were marked by 9 Shahs, but his fate was sealed in exile. Back on Earth, discussions about future plans unfolded. Enki took charge of Eridu while venturing into Abzu to innovate mining technologies, sending his designs back to Nibiru for production. Enlil, pleased with his new role, planned a celestial ship platform amidst the northern peaks of Eden. Meanwhile, Anu returned to a hero's welcome on Nibiru, initiating projects to establish transit routes between Nibiru and Earth, including new classes of spaceships and training for Anunnaki recruits. New missions, including one led by Ninma, Anu's daughter, Enki's and Enlil's royal sister. She was dispatched to Earth, focusing on health and the transit of resources. Upon reaching Lamu, Ninma found Anzu lifeless. Utilizing advanced revival techniques, she miraculously brought him back, after which he recounted his last acts for Alalu. Recognizing his dedication, Ninma confirmed Anzu's new role as Lamu's commander, promising continued support and the establishment of a crucial way station for interplanetary gold transport. Thus, amidst the stars, the legacy of Anzu as a guardian of Lamu was cemented, linking the fates of Nibiru and Earth in their celestial dance. In the vast void, a gargantuan ship approached Earth, meticulously monitoring the moon for potential way stations. Nungal masterfully steered towards a pier by Eridu, constructed under Enlil's command, marking a new epoch where no seafaring vessel was necessary. On their arrival, Ninmah, sister to Enki and Enlil, was heartily welcomed. She shared vital updates, events from Nibiru, Alalu's demise, Anzu's survival on Lamu, and a new way station's rise. While Enki approved, Enlil seemed unsettled. Ninmah, with solemn gravity, declared Anu's commands absolute, bringing more than just news. She brought hope in the form of healing seeds from her pouch, explaining their potential to eradicate diseases once cultivated and processed into a potent draught. However, these seeds demanded specific conditions, heat and ample water. Sensing opportunity, Enlil invited Ninmah aboard the ship, claiming knowledge of an ideal planting site. Together with Enki, they ventured toward the frigid realms adjacent to the cedar forests. Amidst their journey, intimate exchanges flourished between Enlil and Ninmah, revealing plans of their offspring, Ninurta, joining Earth's fold. Enlil, heir to Anu through Queen Antu. Upon their return to Eridu, Enlil unveiled his grand design for a network of 5 cities: Eridu, Larsa on the Buranu River, Lagash, Shurubak, and Nibruki, with Nibruki serving as a celestial and terrestrial nexus, receiving new heroes from Nibiru, workers for the gold mines, and housing the sacred tablets of destinies. This plan, detailed on a crystal tablet, left Ninmah in awe of its depth and foresight, though she cautioned Enlil to adhere strictly to Anu's directives and to remain in harmony with Enki. Meanwhile, Enki, from his celestial ship, surveyed the Abzu, a fertile region ripe for exploitation and settlement. Here, he envisioned a domicile not just for himself, but as a hub for the Anunnaki's expansive mining operations, tapping into Earth's golden veins to aid Nibiru's ailing atmosphere. The narrative then shifts to the burgeoning extraterrestrial community on Earth, under the watchful eyes of Enki in the Abzu and Enlil in the Eden, each overseeing their dominions as the celestial operations expanded. Yet, beneath this progress lurked underlying tensions about heritage and authority, particularly involving the firstborn rights between Enki and Enlil, and romantic entanglements that threatened to disrupt divine orders. The situation escalated when Enki, despite being Anu's eldest, was not considered the legitimate heir due to his mother's status as a concubine. Conversely, Ninmah was involved with Enlil, leading to the birth of Ninurta, complicating the succession further. As Anu's complex familial tapestry unfolded, Ninmah found herself torn between duty and desire, leading to choices that would echo through their histories. As turmoil subtly brewed among the royal Anunnaki and the Igigi laborers, Enki, deeply absorbed in other pursuits within the Abzu, remained oblivious. To tackle the growing dissatisfaction, he established a facility called the House of Life and enlisted his son Ningish Zida to manage its complex operations. There, Enki found fascination with unique creatures inhabiting the tall forests, particularly those using their front limbs as hands and the bipedal entities roaming the grassy plains. Fully immersed in unraveling life's mysteries, Enki equipped the House of Life with state-of-the-art tools and instruments, dedicating himself completely to his research. Meanwhile, Ninurta, Enlil's firstborn son, stationed in Bad Tibira, first noticed the dwindling efficiency in gold extraction. Enlil sent him to the Abzu to investigate, accompanied by Ennugi, the chief officer, who relayed the Anunnaki laborers' grievances directly to Ninurta. The conditions here have become insufferable. Upon learning of the unrest, Enki immediately called Enlil to the Abzu. Upon arrival, Enlil was confronted by a group of protesting workers who had even set their tools ablaze. Kalkal, the gatekeeper, secured the premises and alerted Nusku, Enlil's vizier, who woke Enlil with urgent news. "My lord, the workers have encircled us," voicing their frustration with the harsh labor. Enki and Ninurta joined Enlil, who demanded to know the cause of the uprising. In unison, the workers declared, "We all initiated it." In response to the chaos, Enlil communicated with Anu, who insisted on the continuation of the gold mining. The work must proceed without pause. Consulting with Anugi, who emphasized the increasing intolerability of the work due to Earth's harsher climate, Ninurta suggested, "Let the dissenters return to Nibiru and replace them with fresh workers." Enlil then asked Enki if it were feasible to devise new tools to ease the labor. Enki mentioned how previously on their home planet they tried fashioning machines to do the work, but it had failed. After discussing with Ningishzida, Enki proposed a radical idea. Perhaps we can create a primitive worker, a Lulu, to assume the Anunnaki's burdensome tasks. This suggestion left the Anunnaki leaders in stunned silence. Could such a concept even be feasible? They summoned Ninma, esteemed for her healing prowess, to consult on the matter. Ninma expressed her astonishment. "I've seen nothing like this before. Every creature is born from a precursor. None come from nothing." Enki, nodding in agreement, shared a revelation. "Indeed, you speak the truth, my sister, and now I must unveil a hidden aspect of the Abzu. The being we need is already here. We simply need to imprint our essence on them. We must endow them with the essence of the Anunnaki. Let's forge a primitive worker, Lulu, to bear the burdens of the gods." Enki's declaration caught the Anunnaki off guard, their expressions a mix of astonishment and intrigue. "Who might this being be?" Enki elaborated. "Creatures exist in the Abzu, walking upright on two legs, using their forelimbs as arms, their hands adept and living amongst the steppes wildlife. They feed directly with their mouths, consuming vegetation and drinking from natural water sources, competing for territory among themselves. These beings are unclothed, their bodies cloaked in hair, their heads as furry as a lion's mane." Enlil responded with confusion. "Such beings have never been seen in Eden." Ninma interjected. "Perhaps on Nibiru our ancestors resembled these beings. It's a being, not merely a creature. Witnessing this would indeed be fascinating." Enki suggested gathering at the House of Life to meet these beings, having already secured several within cages. Upon encountering the Anunnaki, the creatures stirred, banging against their confines, showing aggression. Observers noted both males and females. "They resemble us. The Anunnaki are destined to labor in the mines. Does this not preclude the creation of a primitive worker? That, my fellows, is the crucial question. Is the creation of the primitive worker a matter of luck, or is it fate?" With profound uncertainty, the earthbound Anunnaki resolved to seek guidance from Anu on Nibiru. A new council was convened, bringing together elders, sages, and commanders for a thorough deliberation. Despite extensive discussions involving all parties, the urgency of Nibiru's salvation took precedence. Anu eventually relayed the royal decree to the Anunnaki on Earth. "Let Nibiru be saved. Let the new being be created." Enki requested Ninma's assistance, and Ennugi, the chief overseer, cautioned the Anunnaki in the Abzu that work must continue until the new being was successfully created. Meanwhile, Enki led Ninma to a secluded area where cages hid among the trees, containing grotesque creatures. As they observed these monstrous beings, Enki explained that the essences of different life forms had been combined, and various species had been altered through hybridization. Enki and Ninma returned to the House of Life, where Ningishzida unveiled the intricacies of life essence and the methods for combining various essences effectively. Ninma remarked, "The creatures in the cages are bizarre and monstrous." "Indeed they are," Enki replied, "and that is precisely why you are here, to achieve perfection." Numerous questions plagued Ninma. How many essences must we collect? Which womb will bear the child? After reflecting, Ninma smiled subtly. "We need the wisdom of someone who has previously given birth, and I possess that knowledge." Together with Ningishzida, she studied the sacred formulas encoded in objects symbolizing science and civilization, known as ME. Finally, she turned her attention back to the cages holding the monstrous creatures and realized that essences are transferred through the mating of a male and a female. The two intertwined strands separate and merge to produce offspring. Ninma thus understood what was required. "Let an Anunnaki male impregnate a bipedal female," she suggested. Enki responded, "We tried, but it failed. There was no conception." Ninma proposed an alternative approach to blending the essences. "We must not harm the earth. Our essence must be transmitted gradually and delicately through the secret formulas contained in the ME. Consequently, a crystal vessel was utilized, and an ovum from a biped was fertilized with Anunnaki seed. The egg was implanted into a bipedal female, and insemination occurred, but no birth ensued. Just in time, Ninma made a small incision and extracted the hybrid. It was a living being, with a hairy body resembling earth creatures on the upper part and Anunnaki features on the lower. The creature was entrusted to its bipedal mother for care and nursing. Surprisingly, the creature developed at an accelerated rate. A day on Nibiru equated to a month in the Abzu. The Earth Boy soon ceased making animalistic grunts, though his hands remained ill-suited for tool use. Ninma remarked, "We must try again and refine the blend. Allow me to experiment with the MEs, the encoded object formulas of science." Enki and Ningishzida repeated the procedure, adhering closely to Ninma's instructions. Equipped with Anunnaki essence contained in the ME, Ninma took a bit from one essence and a bit from another, combining them with an earthly female's egg in a crystal vessel. This time, the birth occurred on schedule, and the newborn was allowed to mature in his mother's arms. He resembled the Anunnaki more closely, with a more pleasing appearance and hands seemingly designed for tool use. However, they discovered that the new Earth Boy had hearing impairments and deteriorating vision. Undeterred, Ninma continued her experiments, conducting further tests with new blends. Multiple inseminations were carried out, but each attempt brought its own set of problems. One offspring had paralyzed feet, another had issues with reproductive organs, and yet another suffered from underdeveloped lungs. Enki grew disheartened, but Ninma's resolve did not waver. Enki eventually intervened, suggesting, "The issue may not lie in the blend, the ovum, or the essence, but perhaps in the crystal vessel from Nibiru. Let's try using a vessel made from materials found on Earth, such as gold and copper, a vessel crafted from clay in the Abzu." Following Enki's advice, Ninma created a vessel from Abzu clay, shaping it into a cleansing bath. She meticulously combined an Earth female's egg with vital essence, extracted from Anunnaki blood. Carefully, she manipulated the essence using the ME formulas, then implanted the fertilized egg into the Earth female's womb. Conception was successful, and they awaited the expected birth. At the designated time, the female went into labor, and a boy was born gradually. Ninma closely observed the newborn and was astonished by his perfection. With her own hands, she cradled the infant while Enki and Ningishzida looked on. The three celebrated the successful birth. Enki exclaimed, "Your hands have brought forth a triumph." The baby was then entrusted to his earthly mother for nursing, and over the months, he transformed into a robust boy. Although he struggled with speech, his limbs were well adapted for physical labor. Enki considered the situation and explored all possibilities. He stated, "Throughout all our attempts and modifications, one constant has remained. The fertilized uterus has always been that of an earthly woman. This might be the sole barrier to achieving complete success." Ninma and Ningishzida exchanged knowing looks, and Enki added, "The only option we haven't explored is using an Anunnaki womb. To create a being truly in our image and likeness, it must develop within an Anunnaki." Wise observation, Ninma concurred. Perhaps the correct mixture was introduced into the wrong uterus, but who will be the Anunnaki female to undergo insemination and create the primitive worker? Isn't there a risk of birthing a monster in her womb? Enki suggested, "Let me speak with Damkina, my wife, also known as Ninki." "No," Ninma interjected. "I have thoroughly investigated the matter. I have prepared the vessels and the mixtures. Let this womb be mine. I will take that risk." Enki consented, and he prepared the mixture in a clay vessel. He then implanted the fertilized egg into Ninma's womb, where conception occurred. Labor began earlier than the typical 9 months on Nibiru, but later than 9 months on Earth. Enki assisted the boy as he emerged, marveling at his perfection. He gently tapped the newborn, who cried out in response. Enki then handed the baby to Ninma, who lifted him up and exclaimed, "My hands created him. My hands did it." Ninma held the baby close to her chest, providing him with the nourishing sustenance flowing from her body. The baby thrived under her care and observation. Enki observed a mother and her child, not Ninma and any other being, but a mother and her true child. The newborn possessed well-formed ears, unobstructed eyes, and adequate limbs, with feet positioned at the bottom and hands on top. His appearance differed from the savages. His hair was dark black, and his skin was smooth, lacking any hair. His skin exhibited a dark red tone, matching the color of his blood. His genitalia differed from those of the Anunnaki, with a distinctive shape and fur covering the frontal area. Enki declared, "Let him be distinct from us with this frontal skin hanging from his genitals." He then turned to Ninma and inquired, "This is a being, not a mere creature. Will you name him?" Ninma responded, "His name shall be Adamu, which means like the clay of the earth." A cradle was fashioned for little Adamu, and the Anunnaki convened in the House of Life to discuss the next steps. They required an army of primitive workers, with Adamu serving as the prototype. He would be treated as a firstborn, shielded from labor, and used as a model for future workers. Ninma suggested that the caretakers from her city, Shurubak, be brought to the House of Life for the subsequent inseminations. 7 Anunnaki volunteered for the task. Enki praised their names, and Ningishzida recorded them for posterity: Ninima, Shuzyana, Ninmada, Ninbara, Ninmug, Musardu, and Ninguna. Ninma prepared the 7 clay vessels, extracting eggs from the female bipeds. She then extracted Adamu's life essence and meticulously placed it into the containers. Through a small incision in Adamu's intimate area, she drew a drop of his blood, declaring, "Let this signify life. Let us always proclaim that flesh and soul have united." She squeezed the male genitals to extract blood and added a drop to each container. In the clay mixture, terrestrial and Anunnaki essences would merge. Ninma recited a spell to unify the 2 essences, one from heaven and one from earth, bringing them together. Ningishzida recorded Ninma's incantations. The fertilized eggs were then implanted into the wombs of the Anunnaki females. Conception followed, and the births proceeded as planned. 7 earth males were born and nurtured by their mothers, becoming 7 flawless primitive workers. Let the process be repeated, and let 7 more primitive workers assume the task, Ningishida suggested. Enki replied, "My son, 7 by 7 will not suffice. We need more Anunnaki heroines for this endeavor." Ninma exclaimed, "This workload is overwhelming." Enki proposed, "We must create females. Let them mate, unite as one, and reproduce autonomously, enabling them to generate their own offspring." Ningishida needed to modify the Me essence formulas to transition from male to female. Additionally, an Anunnaki womb was necessary for the creation of females. Ninma, Enki, and Ningishida exchanged glances. Enki declared, "Let me summon Ninki, my wife, Damkina, so that she may conceive this time." In the House of Life, Ninki became aware of everything that had transpired and her role in it. Agreeing to her responsibilities, Ningishida adjusted the Me formulas, fertilized an ovum, and Enki implanted it into his wife's womb. Conception occurred, but no birth took place when the time was due. Months were counted, and it was decided that Ninma would perform a procedure. With precision, she made a small incision and opened the passage. Light filled the room, and the contents of the womb emerged. Everyone was moved by the sight. It was a female, a newborn girl. Her ears were well-shaped, her limbs were perfect, and she possessed hands and feet. She lacked hair and had smooth Anunnaki-like skin. Ninma cradled the girl in her hands, gently tapping her to elicit cries, and then handed her to Ninki for nourishment. Enki proclaimed, "She is not a creature, but a being. She bears our image and likeness. Perfection has been achieved. You have provided the blueprint for female workers. What shall her name be?" Ninki, with warmth and emotion, replied, "Her name shall be Tiamat, which means Mother of Life. She shall be named after the ancient planet from which both Earth and the Moon were created. From the vital essences of her womb, others shall be molded and illuminated. Thus, a multitude of primitive workers shall come into existence." After some time, Ninma extracted the vital essence of Tiamat and placed it into 7 vessels crafted from the clay of the Abzu, where the eggs of the biped females were already present. She chanted incantations and inserted them into the Anunnaki wombs. In due time, 7 females were born. Enki declared, "Let the males and females become acquainted, and may they give birth to diverse primitive workers. Through their own procreation, offspring will beget new offspring. May they grow and develop together, embracing both male and female aspects." Enki, Ninma, Ningishida, and Ninki rejoiced and constructed enclosures, placing them among the trees. Enki continued, "Let Adamu and Tiamat be relieved of their labor. Send them to the Eden to showcase our success to the rest of the Anunnaki." Adamu and Tiamat were directed to Eridu, Enki's city in the Eden. Thus, the Anunnaki came to witness them. Enlil found satisfaction in what he saw, easing his discontent. Ninurta and Ninlil also became acquainted with them. Marduk, Enki's firstborn son, arrived from the station of Lamu to meet them. It was a remarkable, splendid, and awe-inspiring creation. "You, the creators, crafted this beauty," the Anunnaki acknowledged. "With the primitive workers, our days of toil shall come to an end," they all exclaimed. But not everything proceeded as anticipated. In the Abzu, beings grew, but maturity was delayed. Ennugi questioned Enki about the primitive workers who were slow to grow and reproduce. The Anunnaki expressed dissatisfaction with the labor. Ningishida established an observation post where males and females could be seen mating, but there was no conception or birth. Enki explained that a curse had been created by combining 2 species. Ningishida pondered and suggested further observation of the essences of Adamu and Tiamat. Let's examine the ME matrices to identify any discrepancies. In Shurubak, at the House of Healing, the essences were scrutinized. There were 22 branches on the Tree of Life. The components were comparable, with determined images and likenesses, but they lacked the capacity for procreation. Ningishzida demonstrated that another essence was present in the Anunnaki, one for males and one for females. Without this essence, procreation was impossible. These essences were absent in the initial mold of Adamu and Tiamat. Ninma was concerned, and Enki was profoundly frustrated. Immediate action was necessary. News arrived that a new rebellion was being organized by the Anunnaki of the Abzu. Ningishzida, an expert in these matters, had an idea. He secluded himself with Enki, Ninma, Adamu, and Tiamat in the House of Healing at Shurubak, inducing a deep sleep in Enki and Ninma. Then the procedures began. Ningishzida extracted the life essence from Enki's rib. He transferred the extracted essence from Enki into Adamu's rib, and he transferred the life essence from Ninma's rib into Tiamat's rib. After suturing the incisions, Ningishzida awakened them all and announced, "It's done. I have added the vital essences of the Anunnaki to the Tree of Life." Thus, Adamu and Tiamat were sent to the Garden of Eden and freed. Both the male and female became aware of their nakedness, and Tiamat covered their private parts to distinguish them from wild animals. Enlil, meanwhile, was walking through the garden when he encountered Adamu and Tiamat. Alarmed by their covered private parts, he summoned Enki to question him. "What is this? Why are their private parts covered?" Enki admitted the importance of procreation for them and explained that the initial creations had failed in this aspect. Enki clarified that Ningishzida had repaired the Tree of Life. Enlil was furious. He exclaimed, "None of this was my will. We should not act as creators. You said the beings we needed already existed. You said we just needed to put our mark on them. You have put the Anunnaki at risk. You have endangered Ninma and Ninki. You have put the caretakers at the House of Healing in danger. And all of this has been in vain. Your work is a failure." And so, as a final act, they offered these creatures parts of our life essence, so that they may be like us in their knowledge of procreation and be bestowed with our life cycles. Enki called Ninma and Ningishzida. Ningishzida spoke, "My lord Enlil, we gave them the knowledge of procreation. The long life branch has not been added to their core tree." Ninma said, "What choice did we have, my brother? That it all ended in failure? That Nibiru's fate in destruction be found? Or that we make several attempts until earthlings take over the work through procreation? Out of Eden, Adamu and Tiamat are expelled from the Eden. Enki ushered Adamu and Tiamat into a garden abundant with trees, fostering their acquaintance. There, the marvel wrought by Ningishzida was revealed. The couple produced twins, both a boy and a girl, observed by Ninma. Life on Earth moved faster than on Nibiru. Before a Shar elapsed, the children multiplied. Thus began the proliferation of Adamu and Tiamat's lineage, significantly boosting Earth's population. In the Abzu, the Anunnaki's burden of labor was lifted, as the primitive workers neither complained about their conditions nor their sustenance. The gold extraction continued successfully, ameliorating the atmospheric tear on Nibiru. Relationships and progeny among the Anunnaki flourished. Despite their origins from Nibiru, the Anunnaki offspring matured quicker on Earth, accelerating their generations. Nana and Ningal, proud parents of twins Inanna and Utu, marked the advent of the third Anunnaki generation on Earth. As Earth's climate changed, environmental challenges followed. Increased heat merged snowy regions with oceans, vegetation thrived, and wildlife roamed freely. Intense rains caused rivers to swell, necessitating frequent repairs to dwellings. Seismic activities became commonplace, with frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. At the edge of the Abzu, Enki established a lookout, delegating its oversight to his son, Nergal, and his consort, Ereshkigal. Meanwhile, Enlil monitored celestial movements from Nibiru Ki, correlating them with the ME tablets, noting disturbances in the cosmic order. Marduk, stationed on Lamu, reported severe environmental disturbances affecting their operations. Meteoric activities intensified, casting shadows over Earth with celestial debris causing widespread destruction. On Nibiru, discussions among sages failed to comfort their rulers. The celestial alignment was shifting. Nibiru's close approach disturbed the orbital paths within its solar family. Eventually, Nibiru receded, calming the meteoric showers on Earth and Lamu. By then, 80 Shahs had passed since their mission began. Enki assessed Earth's geological stability for ongoing gold extraction, while Ninurta confirmed that the landing sites were intact except for some disruptions in the northern valleys. Marduk, expressing dissatisfaction with Lamu's worsening conditions, desired to return to Earth. Enlil revisited strategic plans for interplanetary travel, proposing a direct spaceport in Eden to eliminate the need for Lamu's intermediary station. However, Ninurta suggested Bad Tibira as a better alternative for the launch site. After deliberation, Anu approved the establishment of the new spaceport in Eden, streamlining the transportation of gold to Nibiru and resources to Earth. Despite Enki's concerns about Earth's thicker atmosphere demanding more energy for space travel, he proposed an innovative solution, establishing a base on the Moon to facilitate easier transitions between Earth and Nibiru. Anu agreed to this exploratory mission, and Enki, along with Marduk, embarked on a lunar expedition. They studied the Moon's surface, finding it inhospitable but fascinating, leading to extended stays for detailed observations. Enki and Marduk's prolonged absence raised suspicions and concerns among the Anunnaki on Earth and Lamu, particularly as conditions at the intermediary station deteriorated. Back on Earth, the situation among the Anunnaki grew tense. The primitive workers were multiplying, potentially capable of overtaking Anunnaki duties. This led to a demand for laborers across various Anunnaki settlements, escalating tensions and necessitating decisive actions from leaders like Enki and Enlil to manage the burgeoning populations and maintain control over Earth's resources. Upon landing on the Moon, they realized the atmosphere was harsh, necessitating the use of their eagle helmets. Marduk felt the environment was too harsh to establish a base, unlike Lamu. Enki urged patience. Observe how the Sun, Moon, and Earth interact. We should study this further. Convinced by Enki, they stayed to conduct extensive measurements. Over a year on Earth equated to 3 years of data collection, understanding the lunar cycles and Earth's orbit around the Sun. They explored the cosmic dynamics, including the positions of Lamu alongside Earth and the Moon within the solar system, identifying 6 celestial bodies within the inner system and 6 beyond, including Anshar, Kishar, Anu, Nudimud, Gaga, and Nibiru, totaling 12, the complete solar family. Marduk, puzzled by the arrangement of 7 celestials, prompted Enki to explain the orbital mechanics and the paths essential for Nibiru's safe passage, which Enki named the Path of Anu, celebrating the cycles through celestial constellation formations across 3 paths, assigning 36 constellations related to Earth's orbit around the Sun. Enki showcased the commencement of the zodiac cycle, calling the period up to Pisces' end and starting the next with his namesake. Marduk noted, "Your insights are profound, Father, yet governance and wisdom remain distinct on Earth and Nibiru." Enki reassured him. "What are you lacking? I've imparted all my knowledge to you." Marduk expressed his feelings of exclusion from the creation of primeval workers and the sharing of life-death secrets, which were given to younger gods instead. "You command the Igigi on Lamu," Enki reminded him. Marduk countered, "You're Anu's firstborn, yet Enlil holds dominion. You established Eridu, yet govern from distant Abzu. What fate awaits me upon our return to Earth?" Enki comforted him. "Your future will be significant, aligning with the times." Their discussions continued, raising alerts on Earth. Meanwhile, Enki and Marduk extended their lunar stay, analyzing celestial movements and the interplay of cosmic forces, noting disturbances and the potential for systemic shifts. Back on Earth, tensions among the Anunnaki grew over the rising Earthling populations, potentially overtaking their roles. Calls for labor support echoed across regions, contrasting the relative ease in the Abzu with mounting demands in Eden. Amid debates, Ninurta acted unilaterally, capturing Earthlings for labor in Eden, inciting Enki's wrath and Enlil's stern disapproval for overstepping directives. The Anunnaki marveled at the Earthlings' capabilities, but were unsettled by their unrestrained reproduction and inadequate resources. Enlil's frustrations peaked, urging Enki to find resolutions. Enki saw potential in the Earthlings' proliferation, but recognized the distancing of Anunnaki from direct labors, foreseeing a need for sustainable coexistence, and instructed on advanced agriculture and livestock management, proposing a shared sustenance plan. These developments astounded Enlil, leading to consultations with Anu, who was intrigued by the rapid emergence of a civilized man directly from the lineage of Adamu. Anu pondered the implications for large-scale agricultural needs and the potential for Earthling self-sufficiency. Both Anunnaki and Earthlings suffered from hunger. In his heart, Enki devised a plan for a civilized humanity. He meticulously observed and studied the new beings. During their activities in rivers and forests, during work, copulation, and rest, Enki shared all his observations with his vizier, Isimud. Then, one day, while sailing in a boat, Enki encountered two striking young women of wild beauty. Isimud encouraged him, saying, "Embrace them and get to know them." Enki offered the ladies fruits and berries from the field, and afterward, he embraced, acquainted himself with them, and deposited his life-giving fluid into their wombs. Isimud monitored whether the two would conceive, and indeed, they did. Enki instructed Isimud, "Let no one discover what has transpired." In the 93rd Shar since Enki's begetting, the two children were born in Eden. They were nurtured by their mothers and then brought to Enki's dwelling. Isimud conveyed that the two had been discovered among the reeds, thus preserving Enki's secret. Ninki, with affection, took the two children and raised them as her own. The boy was named Adapa, and the girl was named Titi. Ninki imparted knowledge to Titi, while Enki shared everything conceivable with Adapa. Enki confided all his delight to Isimud, proclaiming, "I have brought forth civilized mankind. They will domesticate sheep and cultivate crops." Enki dispatched a message to his brother Enlil, informing him of the emergence of a new kind of being amidst the desert. Enlil personally journeyed from Nibiru to Eridu. Enki explained that these beings were quick learners and possessed the capacity to transmit knowledge and craftsmanship. Bring forth seeds from Nibiru for them to sow. Bring forth sheep from Nibiru to populate the earth. Let us instruct this new class of Earthlings in agriculture and herding. The Anunnaki and Earthlings shall share the same table. Enlil was amazed. In fact, it was incredible. He asked Isimud to confirm, "Did you really find them among the reeds?" Enlil shook his head and contemplated everything with fear and astonishment. He decided to send the news to Anu. Anu was astonished. It wasn't new that one species led to another, but he had never heard of anything like this, the sudden appearance of civilized man on Earth directly from Adamu. Anu pondered whether large numbers would be needed for sowing and herding. Would they be able to multiply? While the sages of Nibiru contemplated the matter, Adapa and Titi met in Eridu. Conception and birth followed, and Titi gave birth to twin brothers. Anu heard the news and sent seeds and sheep to be raised on Earth. He made a decision. Titi should remain in Eridu to nourish and care for the newborns, while Adapa, the earthly one, would be taken to Nibiru. Enlil was discontent with his father's choice. Who would have thought of such a decision? What would happen when Adapa was brought to Nibiru? He would traverse the cosmos and acquire profound knowledge. Then, in Nibiru, he would partake in the sustenance of longevity. Thus, he would become akin to the Anunnaki. Enki, perturbed by Anu's decision, darkened in expression. He and Enlil concurred. Who could foresee such a verdict? Ninma interjected, acknowledging the inescapable authority of Anu. Enki suggested, "Let our younger generation escort him to witness Nibiru themselves." He proposed Ningishzida and Dumuzi accompany Adapa, offering guidance and calm. Ninma concurred, recognizing the fading connection of their offspring with Nibiru's cycles, now aligned more with Earth's. She supported sending Enki's unmarried sons, possibly to find brides on Nibiru. Thus, a celestial craft from Nibiru landed at Sipar. Ilabrat, Anu's vizier, emerged to escort Adapa. Summoned were Adapa, Titi, and the youths Ka'in and Abael. Ilabrat marveled, "The earthlings bear our likeness strikingly." Enki introduced his sons Ningishzida and Dumuzi, chosen to accompany Adapa. "Anu will rejoice seeing his grandsons," Ilabrat remarked. Enki instructed Adapa, "You'll meet Anu on Nibiru. Bow low, speak minimally, answer only when questioned, and accept the garments provided. Refuse the unfamiliar bread and drink. They are perilous." He similarly briefed his sons, emphasizing their equality with Nibiru's nobles and focusing on ensuring Adapa's safe return without succumbing to Nibiru's temptations. Before departing, Enki secretly passed a sealed tablet to Ningishzida for Anu. Together, they boarded the spacecraft at Sipar. Adapa, donned in an eagle helmet, was initially terrified by the ascent, but was soothed by Ningishzida and Dumuzi. As Earth receded into the cosmos, Nibiru loomed ahead. Upon arrival, their reception was marked by immense curiosity. The Anunnaki and a terrestrial being had arrived, a spectacle of cosmic proportions. In the palace, nobles and counselors gathered. Ilabrat led Adapa and Enki's sons into Anu's throne room, where they bowed deeply. Anu, emotionally moved, embraced his grandsons. Dumuzi and Ningishzida flanked Anu, and Ilabrat introduced Adapa. Anu queried Adapa's comprehension, assured by Ilabrat of Enki's teachings. Anu beckoned Adapa, who respectfully introduced himself as Enki's servant, astonishing the assembly. Anu exclaimed over the marvels wrought on Earth. Celebrations ensued, but Adapa declined all food and drink, adhering to Enki's cautions. Anu, puzzled by Adapa's refusals, questioned him. Adapa cited Enki's warnings against consuming the offerings. Intrigued, Anu examined the secret tablet Ningishzida delivered, revealing Adapa's terrestrial origins and Enki's directive against extending his life. Anu, conflicted yet enlightened by the tablet's revelations, decreed Adapa's immediate return to Earth to continue his legacy without altering his lifespan. Ningishzida was tasked with ensuring Adapa's safe return, imparting knowledge to fortify humanity. Adapa and Ningishzida, carrying seeds from Nibiru, rejoined Earth's fold. Dumuzi stayed behind to learn more of Nibiru's pastoral arts. Upon Adapa's return, Enki briefed them on the celestial journey's implications and prepared for continued guidance of Earth's burgeoning populations under the Anunnaki stewardship, marking a profound epoch in the annals of both planets. These were harrowing days. On Lahmu, dust and barrenness shrouded the planet. The Igigi grew restless and implored Marduk to maintain the way station on Lahmu until clarity could be achieved. Solar eruptions disrupted the gravitational fields of both Earth and Lahmu. In Abzu, before the expanse of White Earth, Nergal and Ereshkigal were tasked with setting up observational instruments. The Anunnaki, who decree destinies, the progeny of Anu stationed on Earth, Enki, Enlil and Ninmah, convened to deliberate. The years of Earth and the Shahs of Nibiru had etched deep marks upon their visages and bodies. Each had notably aged, and it showed. Enki appeared weary and aged. He was the first to voice his concerns. Over 100 Shahs have elapsed since my arrival. I was once a vibrant leader, now just a tired old man. Enlil, reflective and somber, added, I was once a bold explorer, ready to lead. Now I am a patriarch, with children who themselves have children here on Earth. We age, yet those born on Earth seem to age faster. Ninmah, visibly distressed, lamented being dubbed an old ewe. Enlil remarked, others come and go, yet we, the leaders, remain ever bound to this place. Perhaps it is time we considered departure. Enki mulled deeply on this. Every attempt to return to Nibiru is thwarted by mysterious delays. Enlil queried, what is transpiring? Are there troubles on Earth or Nibiru we're unaware of? Ninmah suggested it might relate to the differing life cycles. As they pondered their next steps, Marduk approached Enki with urgent news. Father, Enlil's sons have taken wives. Ninurta has wed Bau, daughter of Anu. Nanar has united with Ningal. Ishkur has joined with Shala. Your son, Nergal, has coerced Ereshkigal into marriage, threatening her life to secure her consent. Marduk then declared his own desires. Now it is my turn, father. I seek a bride for myself. Enki, bemused and delighted, responded, this pleases me, and surely your mother as well. But Marduk interrupted, she is of Earth, not Nibiru, a descendant of Adapa. Enki was taken aback, unprepared for such a revelation. A prince of Nibiru marrying an Earthborn, a descendant of Adapa no less, Marduk confirmed. Her name, he revealed, was Sarpanit. Enki shared this development with Damkina, his daughter and Alalu's widow, known also as Ninki, Lady of the Earth. Marduk elaborated, during a celestial journey with Enkimi, I saw what my father described. Step by step, we crafted a being akin to ourselves on this planet. It was during such teachings about heaven and earth that I was captivated by one of his daughters. Ninki weighed her son's words. Does this young woman return your affections? Indeed, replied Marduk. Enki then pronounced, this cannot be taken lightly. Should you proceed, you would forfeit your princely rights on Nibiru. Marduk retorted bitterly, what rights do I have on Nibiru? My rights as firstborn have been disregarded even here on Earth. This is my resolution. So be it, concurred Ninki. So be it, echoed Enki, who then relayed Marduk's decision to Enlil and Ninmah, both of whom were dismayed. Enlil objected. It's one thing for a father to mingle with earthlings. It's another for a son to wed one. Ninmah suggested a half-sister as a more suitable match, adhering to royal customs. Nonetheless, Enlil communicated these developments to Anu on Nibiru, who expressed his inability to sanction such a union. The sages on Nibiru elucidated that since Adapa was forbidden from staying on Nibiru, his progeny, Sarpanit, would face the same restrictions. Consequently, Marduk would also be barred from returning. By consensus, Anu decreed that Marduk could marry, but would cease to be a prince of Nibiru. This decision was accepted by Enki, Enlil, and Marduk. Ninki proposed, "Let us celebrate their union in Eridu, where I will organize the festivities." Enki suggested, "Let us gift them a domain far from Eden, across the waters, accessible only by boat." Enlil, after considering, agreed, "So be it. Let's celebrate the marriage. Let the festivities be held in Eridu, and I will organize them." United by this cause, the Igigi swore an oath. 200 of them descended at Marduk's wedding through the landing place. They traveled from the great platform on the mountain of cedars to Eridu with a throng of earthlings. At the wedding's conclusion, on a pre-arranged signal from Shamgaz, each Igigi claimed an earthling maiden. Together, they retreated to the mountains of cedars at the landing place. They fortified themselves and sent a message to the Anunnaki leaders, demanding the right to marry earthling women, threatening destruction with fire if denied. The Anunnaki leaders, taken aback and fearful, urged Marduk to address this crisis. Marduk expressed solidarity with the Igigi, stating, "I cannot forbid them what I have embraced." Enki and Ninma reluctantly consented. Enlil was incensed, feeling that their sacred mission had been forsaken. "By our actions, this planet is overrun with earthlings. A misstep follows another." Enki initiated, Marduk escalated, and now the Igigi emulated this behavior. Enlil, filled with dismay, declared, "This should not be on Earth. Let them be cast out." Marduk retorted that conditions on Lamu were dire, survival untenable. "This is a known fact." Enlil, infuriated, insisted, "They cannot remain in Eden." With these words, he stormed off, plotting against Marduk and the Earthlings. For a time, on the landing platform by the Cedars Mountains, the Igigi stayed isolated with the Earthling women. Soon, they bore the first children, named the children of the spaceships. Likewise, Marduk and Sarpanit had children, Asar and Satu. As agreed, they were granted territories above Abzu. Marduk invited the Igigi to dwell in 2 cities he built for his offspring. Some Igigi settled there, others did not. As Marduk strengthened his ties with the Earthlings, Ninurta consulted Enlil about Enki and Marduk's schemes. "The Earth will be inherited by the Earthlings," Enlil told him, instructing Ninurta to meet with the descendants of Cain to establish their own realm, and a city with towers. Ninurta taught the descendants of Cain how to make tools and interpret music, showed them mining techniques, refining, and casting. He taught them to build balsa wood boats so they could cross a great sea. It was a domain beyond the seas, not the mountainous land of the new Sky-Earth link. They were the domains of Ninurta, of the Enlil clan. Those were the days of Lumach, also a descendant of Adapa. In those days, Lumach was still the overseer who reduced the rations of the Earthlings in Eden. And Lumach married Batanash, the daughter of his father's brother. Enki asked Marduk, his son, to take Lumach to his domains to teach the Earthlings how to build a city. And so, Marduk called Lumach to his lands. But this was an unusual request with a clear purpose. It turns out that Batanash, Lumach's wife, was stunningly beautiful, and one of the great Anunnaki was enchanted by such beauty. Enki intended to have Batanash in his arms, and so, to protect Batanash, who was left alone in Lumach's absence, Enki engineered her trip to Shurubak, in the city of Ninma, the refuge city. And after this, Enki went to Shurubak to visit his sister, and Batanash was bathing when Enki found her. And having found her, he had intimacy with her. Knowing her, pregnancy soon followed, and warnings were given to Lumach to return. Thus, a boy was born, and this shocked everyone. Lumach held him in his arms and could not understand what he saw. The boy had white skin like snow, hair the color of wool, and his eyes were like the sky, bright and shining. "I'm confused," said Lumak. "He doesn't look like an earthling." Matushal, Lumak's father, also met the boy and demanded the truth from Batanash's words. "Is he the son of one of the Igigi?" And Batanash said, "None of the Igigi is his father." Matushal calmly put his arm around Lumak's shoulder and said, "The boy is a mystery, but a strange omen has been revealed. He is unique and has been chosen by destiny for a unique task. What that task is, I do not know, but at the appropriate time it will be known. May the son who was born, strange as he is, be an omen that rest is coming." During the days of Lumach, times were tough. The days were colder, and the skies were devoid of rain. Harvests dwindled in the fields, and there were few lambs in the pens. Batanash, the mother, did not reveal her son's secret to Matushal or Lumak. Ninma granted the boy her support and affection. Enki adored him greatly and taught him to read Adapa's writings. The boy, still young, learned to observe and perform the priestly rituals. It was the 10th Shar, and the boy was called Ziusudra, the one with long and bright days of life. He grew up in Shurubak, and there he met Emzara, whom he married and had 3 children with. In those days, suffering on Earth had intensified. Plagues and famine were being felt. Humans and Anunnaki suffered from the recent events, and in those days, the Anunnaki feared for their own safety and for everything happening on Earth. In the eyes of Enlil, the mission of the Anunnaki on Earth had become perverted. For him, the noisy and strident masses of Earthlings had become an anathema. Enlil said that the Earthlings' declarations were oppressive and that their unions kept him awake at night. Ninma interceded on behalf of the Earthlings, saying that it would be useful to teach them how to heal themselves so that they could medicate themselves. But Enlil did not respond positively to her pleas. In the lands where Earthlings lived and proliferated, waters did not grow in their sources, and the earth had closed its belly. It was the vegetation that did not sprout. Enki also pleaded to be able to teach fishing and sustenance from the seas, to which Enlil also prohibited by decree. Over time, hunger and diseases increased. During one Shar, the Earthlings ate the herbs of the field, and so the 2nd and the 3rd Shar also arrived. It was the revenge of Enlil. Ziusudra, Earthling's emissary, journeyed to Eridu and sought Enki, his protector. He begged for rescue and deliverance. However, constrained by Enlil's edicts, Enki was powerless to act. At that era, the Anunnaki themselves trembled at their destiny. Their provisions dwindled, and the transformations happening also touched them. Seasons became irregular, both on Earth and Lahmu. For 2 Shars, they scrutinized the orbital patterns of Nibiru. Peculiar occurrences traced unfamiliar trajectories. Anomalies were unfolding around the sun and its kin. Kisha had misplaced its guardian, and the crafted band was being stretched and manipulated by unseen forces. In Nibiru, the sages raised an alert. They proclaimed that the creator of all was reverting the cosmos to ancient times. Some among the populace voiced that the creator was irate. On Earth, tribulations intensified. Dread and starvation spread. Nergal and Ereshkigal monitored devices facing the white terrain. They recorded 4 Shars of observations, detecting seismic activities and quakes. They discerned the white land beginning to shift. Reports of these observations were dispatched to Enlil and forwarded by him to Nibiru. Thus came the 5th and 6th Shar. There, on the Anunnaki's planet, sages again monitored and sounded the alarm. They informed King Anu that upon Nibiru's next proximity, Earth would be vulnerable, and the ice and snow blanketing the white land would shift, precipitating a cataclysmic flood. The sages foretold that the terrain would be overwhelmed by a massive tidal wave. A flood was imminent. Alarm was high in Nibiru. The uncertainty regarding Nibiru's fate was daunting. What was to transpire? The king, sages, and advisors were apprehensive. In Abzu, the gold mines ceased operation, and the Anunnaki withdrew to Eden. In Bad Tibira, the smelting and refining operations halted, and all the gold stored there was swiftly transported to Nibiru. Vessels departed from the Anunnaki's planet toward Earth, arranging for an urgent evacuation. Aboard one of these ships arriving on Earth was a silver-haired Anunnaki who approached with regal strides, delivering a sealed decree from Anu to the Earth's command lord. Enlil accepted the decree, noting Anu's seal was untouched and genuine. Enlil was taken aback. In Nibruki, he perused the tablet's decree and confirmed the code was utterly reliable. The arriving Anunnaki was named Galzu, representing the king and the council. Anu's decree stated, "The declarations of Galzu are my commands." Galzu hailed from the same institution as Ninma, yet appeared considerably younger. Ninma admitted her lack of recollection of him. She looked quite aged beside him. The rationale was straightforward and part of his mission on Earth. Galzu disclosed. The reason was the hibernation cycles, yet there was more. A secrecy tied to the evacuation was revealed, since Dumuzi was in Nibiru, declared his intention to await the flood on the moon. Enki displayed a perplexed expression. Enlil, baffled by Nanar's declaration, nonetheless consented. Ishkur declared his determination to remain on Earth with Enlil. Utu and Inanna, Nana's progeny, expressed their wish to stay as well. Enki and Ninki proudly proclaimed their decision to remain and not forsake the Earth. Marduk vehemently stated, "I will not forsake the Igigi or Sarpanit." Thus, one by one, the other sons of Enki declared their intention to stay. Nergal and Gibil, Ninagal and Ningishzida, as well as Dumuzi. Attention then shifted to Ninma, who also proudly disclosed her decision to stay, declaring, "My entire existence is here. The Earthlings are my creations. I will not forsake them." Upon Ninma's declaration, the Anunnaki and Igigi inquired, "What will become of the Earthlings?" To which Enlil responded, "The Earthlings, with all their transgressions, let them perish." Enki countered, "A peculiar being was crafted by us, and we must safeguard him." Enlil also retorted, "At every juncture, you have altered decisions. You granted reproduction to the primitive laborers, endowed them with wisdom. You assumed the powers of the creator of all, only to taint yourself with transgressions. You sired Adapa through debauchery. You imparted insight to his lineage. You elevated his descendants to the heavens, disseminating our knowledge among them. You breached all norms, disregarded all directives and decrees. Owing to you, an earthling brother slew another. Due to your son Marduk, the Igigi emulated him and wed earthling women. No one discerns who commands Nibiru and to whom the earth belongs. Enough. That concludes my statement. Enough. The transgression must not persist. Let what will transpire, transpire. And thus, let everyone pledge an oath, and let everyone vow not to interfere with forthcoming events. Enlil, amidst the council of the Anunnaki and Igigi in Nibruki, demanded an oath from all. The initial to pledge was Ninurta, and from Enlil's lineage everyone did so. Subsequently, Enki's sons responded. Enlil's youngest son, Nergal. Nergal bowed respectfully. Marduk informed Enlil he concurred, yet queried the purpose of the oath. If the Igigi abandoned their spouses, wouldn't dread be instilled among the earthlings? Ninma was tearful, and faintly recited the words of the oath. Enlil gazed intently at Enki. "Why do you seek to bind me to an oath?" Enki questioned. "The decision is yours, and on earth it is a command. You aim to portray it as mere happenstance. Let it be recognized as Enlil's decision, and let the accountability rest on Enlil, Enki proclaimed. And having uttered these words, Enki exited the assembly. Marduk accompanied him. Commotion ensued, and swiftly Enlil restored order with prompt commands. Following this, the organization commenced, and naturally, Enlil, being a proficient commander, orchestrated the activities. The initial departures were those returning to Nibiru, and it was not merely one or two, but numerous vessels that embarked. Next was Marduk's turn, and the Igigi with their earthling spouses. Marduk offered them a choice: to accompany him, Sarpanit, 2 sons and daughters, to Lamu, and there await the conclusion of the disaster, or to scatter into the remote mountainous terrains of the earth to seek refuge. Enlil tallied those who remained and allocated vessels to them by groups. He then tasked Ninurta to journey to the mountainous lands beyond the oceans to report on the rumblings of the earth. Progressing further, Nergal and Ereshkigal were assigned to monitor the white earth. Enlil designated his son Ishkur to oversee any advances by the earthlings. His mission was to deny access and to erect and reinforce barriers and locks. The celestial ship place, Sipar, served as the hub of all preparations. It was there that Enlil established the temporary celestial terrestrial link and managed the destiny tablets emanating from Nibiru. Enlil informed Enki that the record tablets should be entombed deep within the earth at Sipar, so that in the future what transpired on one planet might one day be unearthed on another. Enki endorsed his brother's proposal and encased the Emi and other tablets in golden chests, and thus, in the depths of Sipar, they were interred for posterity. With all arrangements in place, the leaders awaited the signal to depart, and they watched with trepidation as Nibiru neared on its grand return. The indications were unmistakable. The celestial signs disclosed that the moment was drawing ever nearer. It was at this juncture that Enki addressed his sister, Ninma, turning his focus to the other living entities. He remarked, "Enlil concentrated all his concern on the earthlings, yet he overlooked all the other living beings. When the flood inundates the earth, all creatures will face doom, including those whose life seeds originated from Nibiru. Let us preserve the life seed. Let us extract their vital essences to safeguard them. I shall undertake this in Shurubak," declared Ninma, "and you shall do likewise with the living entities of Abzu." Thus, while the others awaited anxiously, Enki and Ninma embarked on a formidable task. In Shurubak, Ninma was aided by some of her aides. Enki was assisted by Ningishzida in Abzu, in the venerable House of Life. They gathered the male and female essences, as well as the life eggs. Thus, in pairs, males and females, they safeguarded them in both Abzu and Shurubak. And then the trumpets blared and the alert was sounded. Ninurta proclaimed, "The thunder on earth is formidable." From the white earth, Nergal and Ereshkigal declared, "The white earth trembled." In Sipar, at the celestial ship place, the Anunnaki congregated to await the flood. And it was at this moment, as the tension of the wait intensified, that Enki, in his residence, succumbed to sleep. A dream vision enveloped him in mystery and hope. Before him walked a bright and radiant man, as if he were the heavens themselves. As he approached, he could see that it was Galzu, the white-haired Anunnaki. In his right hand, he held a stylus, and in his left hand, a smooth and shiny lapis lazuli tablet. Galzu said, "Your accusations against Enlil are unjustified, for he was only telling the truth. And the decision, which as Enlil's decision will be known, I must say was destiny, and not him who made it. Now take fate into your own hands, so that the earthlings can inherit the earth. I come to bring you the will of the Creator of all. Summon your son Ziusudra, and reveal to him the impending calamity, without breaking your oath. Instruct him to build a vessel that can remain submerged. Tell him that the construction to be made must withstand an avalanche of water. The vessel must be similar to the one on this tablet that I present to you. Let him save himself and his family, and let him take with him the seed of everything that is valuable, whether plants or animals." And with the stylus, Galzu drew an image on the tablet. He left the tablet engraved next to Enki's bed, and after the image disappeared, the dream vision ended, and shaking, Enki woke up. The vision was enigmatic, but revealing. Enki lay in his bed reflecting with astonishment. What omen could this be? And as he looked around, he saw that the tablet was by his side. What he had dreamed had materialized before him. On the tablet some measures were visible, and they were the exact measurements of the vessel. Immediately, Enki sent emissaries to find Galzu, so that he could speak with him. However, he was surprised. They told him that Galzu had long since returned to Nibiru. Enki was perplexed and struggling to understand such a mystery and omen. Although unable to unravel what had happened, the message was clear. So secretly, that night, Enki went to the reed hut where Ziusudra was sleeping. And in front of the reed hut, Enki spoke not to Ziusudra, but to the wall of the hut. Wake up, said Enki to the wall of reeds. Pay attention to my instructions. A storm will fall upon the earth and sweep away all the cities. Humanity and its offspring will all be destroyed. This is the final decision. It is the word of the assembly convened by Enlil. The decision is made and announced by Anu, Enlil, and Ninma. Now, listen to my words and observe the message that I transmit to you. Leave your home, build a boat, renounce your possessions and save your life. Reed hut, pay attention. You have only 7 days. Build a boat that can rotate and survive the flood. Make sure the boat is completely covered and that the sun cannot be seen inside it. Its design and measurements are described on a tablet. I will leave it here, next to the wall of the reed hut. Remember, you have 7 days. Build the boat and gather your family and relatives. Stack up food and drinking water. Also take domestic animals. Then, on the appointed day, a signal will be given. I will send an Annunaki as a guide, who will be appointed by me and who knows the waters. He will come to you. On that day, you must get into the boat and close the hatch tightly. A crushing flood, coming from the south, will devastate the land and all life. The boat will break loose from its moorings, and then it will rotate and spin under the impact of the water. The echo of Enki's voice still rang in Ziusudra's ears when he was awakened by his words. Enki was hiding behind the reed hut and speaking in front of the wall. His message was clear. A terrible storm was approaching, and the destruction of all humanity was imminent. Ziusudra understood that he was only his own seed, the salvation of humanity. Ziusudra was paralyzed with fear and fell to his knees, begging to see Enki's face. But Enki refused. He had explained everything that was possible and made it clear that Ziusudra could not see his face. Otherwise, he would die. And if the people ask, continued Enki, say that Lord Enlil was angry with Enki and that you will sail to the Abzu, so that perhaps Lord Enlil will calm down. Then there was silence, and Ziusudra left the reed hut, finding the tablet that Enki had mentioned. On the tablet was a boat drawn just as Enki had described. The tablet glimmered in the moonlight. Ziusudra returned to the hut with only one certainty: something serious would indeed happen. The next morning, Ziusudra met the people and told them that he was condemned due to Enlil's irritation with Enki. He explained about Enlil's hostility and that he could not even set foot in the Eden. Thus, he should build a boat to find Lord Enki in his domain in the Abzu. Upon hearing the news, the entire town mobilized to assist in building a boat. It was a massive ark, and the people were anxious. Everyone wanted to help and witness Ziusudra's departure, as this would mean speaking with Enki and appeasing Enlil's wrath. In this way, everyone would assist. Many sacrificed their own livelihoods to provide for Enlil. While some carried wood and helped with construction, others applied pitch. Ziusudra called for all who desired to seek the protection of Lord Enki in the Abzu to join the ark. Some artisans heeded his call, and then 6 days passed. It was on the 7th day, the day of the deluge, that Ninagal, the lord of the great waters, Enki's envoy, arrived. He was one of the great Lord Enki's sons, and carried with him a cedar wood box. Ziusudra invited Ninagal aboard. The vessel was massive and well equipped to withstand the imminent storm. So Ziusudra and Ninagal waited for the 7th day. A foreboding cloud loomed at dawn, casting a deathly shadow over earth. Thunder echoed and lightning split the sky. In Sipar, Utu signaled, "Depart, depart," to the Anunnaki ascending in their celestial ships. 18 leagues away, Ninagal spotted the storm and yelled, "Lock the door." His warning echoed through Shurubak, foretelling the greatest storm ever witnessed. The heavens unleashed, and the earth roared from its depths. Inside the sealed ark, Ziusudra and Ninagal could only hear muffled ocean sounds as the deluge commenced, shaking the planet. In the white land at Earth's bottom, tectonic plates shifted violently, breaking ice, dragged by the forces of Nibiru's influence. Massive ice blocks collided, shattering the frozen landscape. A giant wave rose, merging sky and sea. Fierce winds pushed the waters northward, reaching Abzu's lands before advancing toward Eden's populated regions. When the wave hit Shurubak, the ark's moorings loosened, tossing Ziusudra and Ninagal in an aquatic abyss. Walls of water engulfed those unable to find shelter. Land disappeared beneath the deluge. By day's end, the water surged towards high mountains. Circling Earth in their ships, the Anunnaki watched anxiously. The waters submerged everything, transforming the known world forever. Ninmah despaired at the sight, lamenting her creation's demise. Inanna mourned, seeing Earth turn to clay. The Anunnaki consoled one another, knowing their prior world was reduced to mud. The storm ravaged indiscriminately, flattening landscapes under its ferocity. Following the immense wave, the skies poured for 40 days and nights. Mountain peaks emerged as islets in the vast sea Earth had become. The flood reshaped the landscapes, echoing ancient Tiamat. Gradually, the waters receded. 40 days post-deluge, the rain ceased. Only Ziusudra's ark, guided by Enki's vision, had endured. Ziusudra opened the hatch, greeted by sunlight and a breeze. He beheld the vast ocean, mourning humanity's and all life's loss, save those aboard. No solid land was visible yet. Led by Ninagal, they headed towards Arata's twin mountains, hopeful for dry land. Impatient, Ziusudra released birds to scout for land, first a swallow, then a raven, both returning. Finally, a dove returned with an olive branch. Solid ground was near. Days later, the ark rested on a rock. Ziusudra opened the boat's heavy door, stepping into the fresh air, summoning his wife Emsara and their children. He thanked Lord Enki, constructing an altar from stones to sacrifice a sheep. As he ignited the fire, the Anunnaki, still orbiting in their ships, noticed the Earth's gradual recovery. Enlil confronted Enki upon sensing the burnt offering, incensed, suspecting survival. Enki revealed a secret. Ziusudra is my son. This revelation staggered Enlil. Enki explained his indirect warning to Ziusudra through a reed wall, prompted by a prophetic dream. This disclosure, affirmed by Enki's son Ninagal and heard by other Anunnaki, calmed the enraged Ninurta and Ninmah, who vowed never to allow humanity's destruction again. Realizing humanity's persistence was fated, Enlil blessed Ziusudra and Emzara, urging them to repopulate Earth. Thus, harmony was restored among the Anunnaki and humans. The Enki and Enlil clans reconciled, marking the end of an era, beginning anew post-flood. As the waters continued to recede, revealing that the grains of Nibiru might flourish, enabling once more the making of bread from their cereals. In the Cedar Mountains, as well as others, Ninurta erected dams at the waterfalls, constructed terraces, and educated Ziusudra's eldest son in the arts of farming and sowing. Meanwhile, Enlil delegated a new duty to his youngest son, Ishkur: seek out the areas where waters have subsided and locate any surviving fruit trees. Thus, the task of tending to fruit fell to Ziusudra's youngest son. They discovered the first fruit to be a vine, introduced by Ninmah. Consuming its juice, Ziusudra was quickly overtaken by sleep, seemingly inebriated. Surprisingly, Enki then made an offering to both the Anunnaki and Earth's dwellers. He unlocked the ark maintained by Ninagal, revealing that vital essentials and seeds of life could merge within the bellies of the four-legged creatures on Ziusudra's ship. Enki proclaimed that sheep would proliferate, supplying both wool and meat, while other species would repopulate the planet. Thus, Enki played a pivotal role in the re-establishment of Earth. Tasked with shepherding, Dumuzi, assisted by Ziusudra's middle son, took charge. Enki then turned his attention to the dark-hued land where his and his son's realms lay. At the convergence of mighty waters, Ninagal engineered dams within the mountains, redirecting the tumultuous waterfall currents into a newly formed lake. Surveying the lands between the Abzu and the Great Sea with Marduk, Enki contemplated drainage solutions for the residential river valley. At the river's heart, where waters plunged, he elevated an island and carved 2 caverns within it. Above these, he constructed stone conduits and fashioned 2 channels in the rock, forming straits. Thus, he managed the flow from the highlands, either slowing or accelerating it as needed. Using dams and sluice gates, he moderated the water levels, elevating the serpentine river valley across the cave island, now known as Abu. In the land of the 2 narrows, Enki erected a residence for Dumuzi and the pastoral community. This brought great joy and contentment to the Anunnaki on Earth, and Enlil relayed the positive developments to Nibiru. Yet, the situation on their home planet was grave. The protective golden dust shield had ruptured, and their atmosphere was thinning again. Urgently, fresh gold shipments to Nibiru became essential. Enki, accompanied by his son Gibil, journeyed to the Abzu to assess and explore for gold. However, they encountered devastating news. The gold mines had disappeared, obliterated by a colossal deluge. Communicating with Nibiru, Enki and Enlil reported that the city of Bad Tibira in Eden had been wiped out, leaving no landing sites for their ships at Sipar. Numerous Anunnaki who had labored in the mines and in Bad Tibira were now missing from Earth. The primitive workers who had served as Earthlings had succumbed to the clay post-flood. Consequently, Earth could no longer supply the desperately needed gold for Nibiru. Despondency was palpable both on Nibiru and Earth. In that period, Ninurta completed his mission within the Cedar Mountains and ventured to lands across the seas. There, he shared incredible news. The deluge had deeply scarred the mountainsides, revealing abundant gold in both large and small nuggets in the riverbeds below. This gold was exceptionally pure, needing no refinement or smelting. Ninurta declared that gold was prevalent everywhere. Hastily, Enki and Enlil traveled to this remote mountainous region, astounded by the discovery of gold that required no processing. "This is a miracle," Enki exclaimed to Enlil. "What was destroyed by Nibiru has been restored by Nibiru," Enlil responded, acknowledging, "The unseen hand of the creator of all has permitted life on Nibiru to continue." However, they pondered who could now gather the gold and how it would be transported to Nibiru. Ninurta provided a solution to the first question. During his explorations in the high mountain territories across the oceans, he had not only found gold, but also survivors. He informed the other Anunnaki of 4 surviving sibling pairs who had saved themselves on rafts. These were descendants of Cain, skilled in metalwork. These survivors resided on an island, once a mountaintop, now transformed by the floodwaters. They revered Ninurta as the great protector, a guardian of their ancestors. Upon hearing this, even Enlil, who had intended the eradication of all earthlings, remained unangered. They collectively concluded, "We need to devise a response to a challenging query. In future times, when one queries, when and by whom was this marvel crafted? Let us erect a monument near the dual peaks to herald the age of the lion. May its visage carry the likeness of Ningishzida, the architect of the peaks, and may it gaze directly at the abode of the celestial ships, thus disclosing to future eras when, by whom, and for what aim it was shaped." Enlil concurred with Enki's proposition and stated, "Utu must once more lead the abode of the celestial ships. Let the lion gaze steadfastly eastward, bearing Ningishzida's likeness." Thus, they commenced the sculpting and forming of the lion that would celebrate Ningishzida's image. It was then that Marduk approached Enki, his father, and spoke harsh and angry words of dissatisfaction. "You pledged sovereignty over the whole earth to me, yet now command and honor are bestowed upon others. I am left devoid of lands or roles. Artificial mountains ascend over my erstwhile domains. In the lion's depiction should be my visage, not that of Ningishzida." Marduk's remarks incensed Ningishzida as well as the other progeny. Ninurta and the remaining sons of Enlil also lifted their voices, demanding territories in their names. Each clamored for lands of their own and earthlings to venerate them. Ninma interjected before the rest, saying, "Let not this celebration devolve into strife. The earth remains barren, with only survivors among the earthlings, and we Anunnaki are few. Let us attend to Marduk's statements. Ningishzida has not been robbed of his dignity in Marduk's words." Ninma's tone served as a mediator between the two factions. Enlil declared, "For peace to endure, we must distribute the habitable lands amongst ourselves." And so, they resolved to designate the peninsula as a neutral divider. They named it the Land of Missiles, Tilmun, a realm beyond the reach of earthlings. They entrusted its guardianship to Ninma, the reconciler. To the east of the peninsula, in the habitable lands, they committed them to the stewardship of Enlil and his sons. And for 2 of Ziusudra's sons, Shem and Japheth, to dwell there. The dark-hued continent that included Abzu was allotted to Enki and his clan for dominion. To populate it, they selected the descendants of Ziusudra's middle son, Ham. To placate his son, Enki proposed making Marduk their lord, ruler of their domains. And in this matter, Enlil consented, saying, "Let it be as you wish." In Tilmun, devoid of its mountainous south, Ninurta constructed a residence for his mother, Ninma. It was situated in a valley near a spring surrounded by palm trees. Atop the mountain peak, Ninurta established a fragrant garden, and when all was completed, they signaled all the outposts on Earth. From the mountainous regions beyond the ocean, the small ships brought the gold nuggets. From the site of the celestial ships, the gold was transported to Nibiru. And on that memorable day, Enlil and Enki conversed and agreed. May Ninmah, the peacemaker, be revered, and let a new title epithet be bestowed upon her. Ninharsag, mistress of the mountainhead, let this be another of her names. It was the first Shah since the Great Deluge, and tensions were simmering among the Anunnaki. The sparks flew when Marduk boldly claimed the dark-hued land and all its territories. The scramble for territories intensified, and Ninmah, who had maintained a harmonious stance between the clans, was honored with the title Ninharsag. Thus, Ninmah was celebrated as the Earth's peacemaker. In unison, the Anunnaki praised Ninmah's very essence. With poise and acumen, Ninmah navigated the realms of order among them. Gold continued its journey to Nibiru, and following the festivities, ambitions and rivalries waned. The earth, gradually rejuvenating, blossomed anew, nourished by seeds preserved by Enki. Life flourished once more, revitalizing the earth, air and water with fresh vitality. Yet of all treasures discovered, humanity's remnants stood as the most precious to the Anunnaki, reminiscent of ancient times when the early laborers were created. Now, the Anunnaki, diminished in number and fatigued, longed for the labors of civilized human hands. Thus unfolded the initial Shah following the deluge. Peace was disrupted, not by conflicts between Marduk and Ninurta, or direct disputes among Enki and Enlil's clans. Chaos erupted when Marduk's offspring, supported by the Igigi, shattered the tranquility crafted by Ninmah. Regarding the Egyptian context within the Anunnaki narrative, some clarifications are necessary. Satu, the child of Marduk and Sarpanit, aligns with the Egyptian god Seth and will henceforth be recognized as such. Asa, another offspring of Marduk and Sarpanit, will be referred to as Osiris. Asta, daughter of Shamgaz, will be known as Isis. Nebat, also a daughter of Shamgaz, will be acknowledged as Nephthys. Horon will be known as Horus. These names, Satu, Asar, Asta, Nebat, and Horon, will be retired, and their more familiar Egyptian aliases will be utilized. Now, let us continue this story, unveiling the intricate tapestry woven by the merging of Sumerian and Egyptian cultures, illuminating crucial elements of the Anunnaki's time on Earth. When Marduk and Sarpanit awaited the deluge's end at Lamu, their sons, Osiris and Seth, fell for the daughters of Shamgaz, the leader of the Igigi. Returning to Earth, the brothers chose their partners. Osiris married Isis, and Seth committed to Nephthys. Osiris remained in the dark-hued land under Marduk's tutelage, while Seth established his abode near the landing place, where the Igigi and Shamgaz resided. Restless with earthly realms, Shamgaz questioned and provoked other Igigi. Shouldn't the Igigi be lords? Nephthys incessantly brought these thoughts to Seth. With his father, Osiris would be the sole heir of the fertile lands. Thus, Shamgaz and his daughter Nephthys whispered to Seth, scheming to maintain control over the succession. They organized a feast, inviting the Igigi and the Anunnaki. Unaware, Osiris joined the celebration with his brother. Nephthys, his wife's sister, adorned herself and serenaded Osiris while playing the lyre. Seth served succulent meat to Osiris, and Shamgaz offered him new wine in a chalice, mixed with an elixir. Osiris was in high spirits, singing joyfully and partaking in the music, playing the cymbals. Later, under the influence of the drink and elixir provided by Shamgaz, Osiris collapsed. Let him rest, the hosts suggested. They then escorted Osiris to another room. They led him to a coffin and sealed it with robust clasps, casting it into the sea. Upon discovering what transpired, Isis cried bitterly over her husband's death. Osiris's coffin was located by the seaside in the dark-hued land. Inside, His lifeless body lay rigid and cold, the breath of life having departed from his nostrils. Marduk, shattered, tore his clothes and covered his forehead with ashes. My son, Sarpanit wailed, engulfed in grief and despair. Distraught, Enki exclaimed, "The curse of Cain repeats itself," he declared in agony to his son Marduk. Isis raised a lament to the heavens, beseeching Marduk for vengeance and an heir. Seth must face his inevitable judgment and punishment. Yet I implore you, allow me to conceive a successor from his lineage, and may your son be memorialized by his name, ensuring his line endures. That regrettably cannot be done, Enki responded to Marduk and Isis. Confused and deeply troubled, Isis resolved to defy the orders. Before Osiris's body was wrapped and preserved in the sanctuary, Isis, with dexterity and cunning, extracted the essence of life from her beloved Osiris. Through this bold act, Isis conceived the heir and avenger of Osiris. Before Enki and his sons, before Marduk and other Anunnaki, Seth declared his lineage. I am the sole heir and successor of Marduk, and thus I shall be the lord of the land of the two Narrows. Before the Anunnaki council, Isis challenged his statement. She disclosed her pregnancy by Osiris, proclaiming the true heir was her unborn child. In secrecy, hidden in the river reeds, the child of Osiris and Isis matured. Evading Seth's fury, they named him Horus. Horus was destined, nurtured, and thoroughly prepared to avenge his father. Stunned by this, Seth and his ally, Shamgaz, did not falter in their ambitions. As years passed, the Igigi and their progeny expanded on Earth, from the landing place to the sacred territory of Tilmun. Their movements gradually encroached upon the place of the celestial chariots. In the southern highlands, under the tutelage of his great-uncle Gibel, Horus rapidly grew into a formidable figure. Gibel bestowed upon him falcon-winged sandals for flight and a divine harpoon that fired missile-like arrows. Gibel also imparted the art of metalworking to Horus, revealing the secret of iron. With this knowledge, Horus crafted weapons and rallied an army to challenge Seth and the Igigi to the north. Thus, the inevitable conflict approached, and they advanced by both land and river to the borders of Tilmun, the land of the missiles. Observing Horus's forces, Seth issued a challenge for a duel. The battle soon erupted in the skies above Tilmun. In his spacecraft, Seth awaited, prepared for combat. During the aerial duel, Horus was struck by Seth's poisoned arrow, plummeting as if bitten by a scorpion. Isis, witnessing this, refused to accept what she saw and beseeched the heavens for Ningishzida's aid. Responding from his celestial ship, Ningishzida descended to aid Horus, neutralizing the poison and restoring him by daybreak. Revived Horus, powered by Ningishzida's celestial magic, ascended to confront Seth once more. A fierce battle ensued. First, Horus's fiery column was hit, but with his divine harpoon, he retaliated, striking Seth down. Captured and subdued by Horus, Seth was then presented to the Anunnaki Council. As trained, Horus had fulfilled his role as avenger. Though Seth remained alive, his injuries left him blind and infertile. Considered useless and without lineage, it was decided he should be exiled among the Igigi as a mortal. In victory, Horus was declared the rightful successor to Osiris. The council's decision was immortalized on a metal tablet, placed in the Hall of Records. While Marduk found the outcome satisfying, he grieved the events that transpired. Despite Horus being his grandson, he was not given dominion among the Anunnaki due to his maternal lineage from Shamgaz, leader of the Igigi. Marduk and his consort, Sarpanit, sought comfort in each other, and in time, their son Nabu, born with the gift of prophecy, came into the world. However, the saga of Horus and Seth continued to evolve. Following these developments, Enlil convened a council with his sons, troubled by recent events. We created earthlings in our image, yet now descendants of the Anunnaki resemble earthlings. Violence has arisen among us. A son of Marduk has also become a killer of his brother. For the first time, earthlings have been armed with our weapons, and unrest among the Igigi persists under Marduk's rule, Enlil declared. He expressed deep concern as the Igigi advanced towards the place of the celestial chariots, declaring allegiance to Seth and intending to occupy all celestial facilities. Realizing their intentions, Enlil proposed establishing an alternative celestial facility beyond the oceans, in the land of Ninurta, surrounded by trusted earthlings. Thus, Ninurta embarked on this secret mission, successfully establishing the new heaven-earth connection, safeguarded within a fortified perimeter. Amid these tense developments, Dumuzi, Enki's youngest, fell deeply in love with Inanna, Nanna's offspring. Inanna, Enlil's granddaughter, reciprocated Dumuzi's affections, lord of shepherding. Their love was all-consuming, passionate, and mysterious, celebrated in songs that have echoed through time, immortalized by Inanna and Dumuzi. Enki, the sage, endowed Dumuzi with vast territories across the Abzu. Meluha, the Black Land, was abundant with towering trees, flowing waters, and roaming bulls among river reeds, filled with herds. The land boasted mountains rich with silver and gleaming copper. Loved dearly post Osiris's demise, Dumuzi found favor with Enki. Yet, envy gnawed at Marduk, his brother. Inanna, born of Nannar and Ningal, was nurtured by Enlil, her beauty unparalleled. She learned the ways of celestial travels and ships from her brother Utu, gifted her own spacecraft by the Anunnaki for sky navigation. On the landing platform post-flood, Dumuzi and Inanna's fates intertwined during a profound encounter. Initial hesitations due to their different ancestries, he from Enki's line and she from Enlil's, were set aside when Ninmah brokered peace, leading to their secret meetings and mutual confessions of love. Their walks were filled with sweet exchanges of passion and promises. Side by side, their love deepened. "Let me teach you," Dumuzi whispered ardently to Inanna, who gently responded, pondering the deceit to her mother, Ningal. They chose to reveal their true feelings in a joyful setting, using the scent of cedar for blessings. Thus, they approached Ningal, who blessed their union, declaring Dumuzi a worthy son-in-law. Acknowledged by Nannar and proclaimed by Utu, Dumuzi's engagement brought joy, except to Marduk. Celebrations saw Gebel crafting a gold bridal bed, while Nergal sent lapis lazuli stones. Sweet dates, Inanna's favorite, were piled beside the bed, hiding lapis lazuli stones. Tradition tasked one of Dumuzi's sisters, Geshtinanna, the one to be healed, with perfuming and adorning the bride. Inanna shared her grand visions of power and rule alongside Dumuzi with Geshtinanna, envisioning a mighty nation under their dominion. Startled, Geshtinanna relayed Inanna's ambitious plans to Marduk. Disturbed by these plans, Marduk secretly conspired, prompting Geshtinanna to approach Dumuzi in disguise, suggesting a legitimate heir should come from a sibling, not Inanna. Misled by the guise and her persuasions, Dumuzi succumbed to desire, seeding a lineage in Geshtinanna's womb before sleep took him. That night, a prophetic dream of doom visited Dumuzi, foretelling betrayal and loss through bandits sent by the Master, stripping him of his royal emblems and leaving him chained. Terrified, Dumuzi shared the ominous vision with Geshtinanna, who warned him of Marduk's impending accusations and curse, potentially leading to his disgrace. Enraged by betrayal and seeking safety, Dumuzi fled across the desert of serpents to a sanctuary adorned with waterfalls, pursued by malevolent forces. There, he slipped, his body swept away by the river, ultimately captured by the emissaries of doom. His lifeless form was later retrieved from the lake by Ninagal, transported to the lower Abzu's realms of Nergal and Ereshkigal, where it rested on a cold stone slab. The news devastated Enki, who lamented the cruel fates that took his grandson Osiris and now Dumuzi, questioning his suffering despite his just actions. Enki's mourning deepened upon learning the full truth from Gesht Inanna. Meanwhile, the tragedy enveloped Inanna in deep sorrow, prompting her to venture into the lower Abzu to retrieve Dumuzi's body for a proper burial. Her sister Ereshkigal, the queen of those domains, was alerted to Inanna's arrival at the temple gates and suspected a deceitful plot. At each of the 7 gates leading to Ereshkigal's throne, Inanna's possessions were stripped away one by one. Defenseless, Inanna was accused of conspiring with Nergal, Dumuzi's brother. Ereshkigal, consumed by anger, allowed no explanations and ordered her vizier, Namtar, to afflict Inanna with 60 dreadful diseases. Alarmed by Inanna's disappearance, her parents sought help. Nanar approached Enlil, who in turn consulted Enki. Learning of the situation from Nergal, Enki swiftly crafted 2 emissaries from the clay of the Abzu, beings immune to the rays of death, and dispatched them to retrieve Inanna, dead or alive. Encountering Ereshkigal, their mysterious nature caused her bewilderment. Namtar attacked them with magical weapons to no effect. Reaching Inanna's lifeless body hanging on a stake, the emissaries employed the pulsator and the emitter, sprinkled the water of life upon her, and placed the plant of life in her mouth. Revived, Inanna ordered the recovery of Dumuzi's body as well. As she ascended through the 7 gates, her adornments were restored. Inanna, burning for revenge, confronted Enki to demand the execution of Marduk, blaming him for her beloved's death. Enki, seeking to curb the cycle of vengeance, argued for peace. Yet, Inanna and her children, assembling in council, pressed for aggressive measures against Marduk, viewed as a malevolent serpent. Thus, Enki called his children to defend Marduk, amidst an erupting war between the Anunnaki clans. The battles escalated as Inanna pursued Marduk, who took refuge under Ninurta's and Ishkur's protection. As conflict ravaged the lands, Ninurta employed devastating weaponry, and the channels ran red with blood. Eventually, Marduk retreated into the Ikur, shielded invisibly by Gibil, while Nergal deployed the all-seeing eye. Inanna's fierce assault on the Ekur led to her harming Horus in defense of his grandfather. The Anunnaki, led by Enlil, sought an end to the conflict, proposing exile for Marduk and suggesting peace and succession plans that favored Ninurta. Amid these turbulent times, Marduk's wife, Sarpanit, and their son Nabu pleaded for Marduk's life, proposing a humble existence for him. Inanna remained unyielded, demanding justice for the chaos Marduk instigated. The great Anunnaki, led by Ninma, decided on Marduk's exile over death, assigning Ninurta as the successor on Earth. Enlil felt content and smiled. His son with Ninma was Ninurta. As a father, how can I choose between succession and survival? Enki said with sadness, in my realm, devastation grows. The conflict must cease. Dumuzi's loss still grieves me. Let Marduk then dwell in exile. Enlil declared, if we want peace and Marduk to live, negotiations and concessions are necessary. Observing his opportunity, Enlil aimed to become the supreme among his siblings. He spoke louder, continuing, all stations linking heaven and earth should exclusively be under my control. Sovereignty over the land of the 2 rivers should be passed to another offspring. The Igigi loyal to Marduk must be persuaded to surrender the landing place and forsake their pledge to Marduk. Marduk should be exiled to a land of no return, devoid of Ziusudra's descendants. Thus, Marduk was to be banished. Enki felt destiny's touch in his spirit. "It is settled," he uttered, bowing. Ningishida's name came up soon after in two contexts. He was chosen both to save Marduk and to rule the lands of Ekur. It was mentioned that Ningishida knew Ekur's secrets. As the mighty Anunnaki issued their orders, Ningishida was tasked with the rescue. His challenge: to retrieve Marduk from the sealed depths within the Great Pyramid. Rescuing Marduk, entombed alive, was beyond his own imagining. Ningishida studied Ekur's covert blueprints and crafted a strategy to navigate the obstacles. He then declared, "Through an upper passage carved out, we shall free Marduk." Revealing his scheme to the leaders, Ningishida stated, "In a spot I will show, we'll open a gateway in the rocks. From there, they would trace a circuitous route, creating a pathway for the rescue. Through hidden spaces, they would penetrate Ekur's core. At the central chambers, they would break the stone. Opening an inner gate, they would bypass obstructions. Advancing through the grand corridor, they would lift the trio of stone blocks and reach the topmost chamber, Marduk's perilous cell." Thus, under Ningishida's guidance, the Anunnaki pursued their meticulous plan. With tools that split the stone, they opened the entry and shaped the rescue tunnel. They delved into the mountain's crafty interior and forged a corridor. Circumventing the trio of stone barriers, they reached the highest chamber. On a slender platform, they erected the iron doors and rescued the unconscious Marduk. Carefully, through the serpentine tunnel, they guided Marduk to open air. Outside, Sarpanit and Nabu, his spouse and offspring, were waiting. And at last, an emotional reunion occurred. Then Enki disclosed the terms of his release. Yet Marduk was furious. In his view, it was a monumental disgrace. Marduk proclaimed, "I'd rather perish than forfeit my heritage." Sarpanit embraced Nabu. "We are your future," Sarpanit murmured. Marduk, infuriated and dishonored, softly declared, "I yield to my fate." Sarpanit and Nabu then followed the forlorn Marduk into an irreversible realm. They entered a forbidden territory where horned beasts were hunted. Following Marduk's exile, Ninurta re-entered Ekur through its portal. He moved along the corridors towards a mystic structure. There, on the eastern facade, a tiny artistic opening emitted a crimson radiance. It was the scarlet brilliance of the Destiny Stone. Anguished, Ninurta cried out, "Its power seizes me to slay me, overpowering me with a lethal allure." Ninurta exclaimed from inside the chamber. He then commanded them to shatter the stone completely. Retracing his steps, Ninurta entered the grand corridor and reached the uppermost chamber. In a sculpted stone chest, the heart of Ekur pulsated. The energy of its network extended through 5 compartments. Ninurta struck the chest, which echoed responsively. He then ordered the extraction of the Gug stone, a crystal beam indicator, to be moved to a location of his choice. Descending through the vast corridor, Ninurta inspected the 27 crystal pairs originating from Nibiru. Many were damaged during the battle with Marduk, while others remained intact. Ninurta instructed that the undamaged ones be removed from their settings, while the others he shattered with his rays. Then, outside Ekur, the Great Pyramid, also known as the Mountain House, ascended on its black bird towards the apex stone. He attentively studied the supreme emblem of his foe. With his weapons, he dismantled the symbol, reducing it to fragments on the soil. "The dread of Marduk is now ended," proclaimed Ninurta, triumphant. On the battleground, the assembled Anunnaki lauded Ninurta. They exclaimed, "You mirror Anu." They hailed their champion and leader. To substitute the impaired beacon, a mountain adjacent to the place of the celestial chariots was selected. Within its core, the salvaged crystals were deposited. At its summit, the Gug stone, the stone of direction, was positioned. This mountain was thereafter known as Mount Mashu, the Mount of the Supreme Celestial Bark. Then Enlil convened his 3 sons. Ninlil and Ninma were also present. They reaffirmed their control over the ancient territories and designated lordships over the new regions. Ninurta, Enlil's son who had conquered Anzu and Marduk, was endowed with the authorities previously bestowed upon Enlil to succeed his father over all lands. Ishkur received governance over the landing place in the Cedar Mountains. Hence, Ishkur's new territories amalgamated with his previous domains in the north. Nannar was allotted the lands to the south and east, where the Igigi and their progeny had expanded. The peninsula where the place of the celestial chariots was situated fell within Nannar's territories. Utu was appointed the commander of the place and of the navel of the earth. In the land of the 2 Narrows, as agreed upon, rulership was conferred to Ningishzida through Enki. None of Enki's other sons contested this grant. However, Inanna objected. She staked a claim for the legacy of Dumuzi, her late intended. Inanna demanded from Enlil a domain exclusively hers. The leaders deliberated on how to appease Inanna's requests and consulted the mighty Anunnaki who decreed fates. They resolved to seek guidance from Anu concerning the terrestrial events and the division of lands. Since the great catastrophe, during the times of the deluge, nearly 2 Shahs had elapsed. The Earthlings migrated from the mountainous regions back to the lowlands. They were the progeny of civilized humanity through Ziusudra, intermixed with the lineage of the Anunnaki. The descendants of the Igigi, who had intermarried, traversed the territories, and in remote regions, the offspring of Cain also endured. Few and distinguished, the Anunnaki who descended from Nibiru were their impeccable offspring. The great Anunnaki contemplated how to form settlements for themselves and for the Earthlings. They debated how to sustain their superiority over humanity, and how to ensure the vast and numerous masses of Earthlings would adhere to and serve the few. How could they maintain their elevation above humanity? Amid these considerations concerning the future, the leaders communicated with Anu. It was then that Anu, the formidable king of Nibiru, resolved to revisit Earth once more, accompanied by Antu, his consort, who likewise aspired to see Earth. In his celestial vessel, Anu, the sovereign of Nibiru, neared Earth with his consort, Antu by his side. On Earth, Shem's descendants inhabited the mountainous areas, and the black-headed people were returning to their ancient homeland. As they awaited the Nibirian royalty, the Anunnaki on Earth were restoring their abodes in Eden. By then, the soil had dried, and the Anunnaki resettled, providing sustenance for all. Where Enki's original city, ancient Eridu, once stood, a new Eridu was founded, built atop numerous layers of mud and sediment. Centrally located on a raised platform, a new residence for Enki and Damkina was constructed. It was embellished with gold, silver, and precious metals supplied by Enki's children. This structure was dubbed the House of Tiles of the Lord, whose return is triumphant. Above, a circle aimed skyward marked the 12 constellations by their symbols. Below, reminiscent of the Abzu, waters teeming with fish flowed. In a secluded sanctuary, accessible to none but him, Enki safeguarded the ME formulas. This marked the rise of the first ziggurat. The same was true for Enki's sibling, Enlil. Thus, another ziggurat was built, the subsequent Nibruki, designed specifically for Enlil and Ninlil. Constructed from clay and mud, it stood as a sacred precinct among homes and livestock enclosures. Designed as a stairway to heaven, it ascended in 7 levels to the highest plateau. Within, Enlil preserved the tablets of destinies. Thus arose the lifted eye, surveying all lands. In the courtyard, within its own space, remained Enlil's quick-moving skybird. As the days passed, the arrival of Anu and Antu drew near. A decision was made to construct a celestial abode to await the monarch, situated away from both Enlil and Enki. This was Annunaki, the enchanting place, where large trees were planted to provide shade for the Nibiru royalty. A pristine white edifice was erected in the garden's center. It was the house of Anu. Upon the arrival of Anu's celestial ship on Earth, the Anunnaki's smaller crafts converged towards it, guiding the royal vessel to a secure landing at the place of the chariots, in Tilmun, the land of missiles. There, Utu, the overseer, greeted his great-grandparents, who were arriving on planet Earth. Present to welcome them were Anu's 3 offspring, the Anunnaki, Enlil, Enki, and Ninma. They embraced, laughing and crying together. The separation had been lengthy, and their appearances had altered notably. Although the parents had aged in shars, they appeared younger than their offspring. The 2 sons were now older, bearded, while Ninma, once radiant, now appeared aged and lined. Tears of both joy and sorrow were shed by all. Thus was the Nibirian royalty received on Earth. From the skies, vessels laden with guests descended in Eden, landing next to Annunaki. The Anunnaki on Earth, who had remained, stood in a ceremonial guard of honor. They collectively greeted Anu and Antu. Following this, in a procession with music and song, they escorted the visitors to the house of Anu. There, the king refreshed himself, and Antu, accompanied by other Anunnaki, did likewise in the golden bed house. Afterwards, the king and queen reappeared in the public courtyard, where, like an evening breeze, the whispering leaves surrounded Anu and Antu seated upon their thrones. Beside them stood Enlil, Enki, and Ninma as the festivities commenced. Servants offered wine, while in a corner a bull and a ram roasted, gifts from Enlil and Enki to their celestial visitors. A grand feast awaited the celestial signal to commence. Under Enlil's directive, Zumul, well versed in celestial bodies, ascended the house of Anu's steps to herald the planet's emergence at dusk. First Kishar appeared in the east, followed by Lahamu, then Mumu, Anshar, Lahmu, and the moon, each announced from successive steps. Then, at Zumul's cue, a hymn to the planet of Anu rising in the skies was sung as Nibiru, encircled by a red halo, appeared from the highest step. Amidst music, the Anunnaki clapped and danced, their songs praising the brightly shining celestial body of Lord Anu. At a signal, a bonfire was ignited, and soon bonfires illuminated all of Eden. After dining on bull and ram, fish and fowl, accompanied by wine and beer, Anu and Antu retired to their chambers, while all the Anunnaki expressed their gratitude. Anu and Antu rested for several days and nights on Earth. It wasn't until the 6th day that Anu summoned his 2 sons and daughter. He received updates on the events on Earth, spanning matters of peace and conflict. Anu learned that Earth's inhabitants, whom Enlil had once vowed to eliminate, had multiplied anew. Enlil also shared news of discovered gold in distant lands across the oceans, and the location of a new site for their chariots. Then Enki revealed to his father a dream and a tablet given by Galzu. Anu was puzzled. A secret envoy bearing his name. He had sent no one in his name. The leaders were perplexed, unsure who had dispatched Galzu. Enki disclosed, it was due to Galzu that Ziusudra and the seed of life were preserved. Enlil added, our stay on Earth was advised by Galzu. He cautioned us that returning to Nibiru would be our end. Disbelieving, Anu heard Enki and Enlil jointly inquire, "If not you, then who sent Galzu?" Ninmah nodded solemnly before saying, "Galzu acted on behalf of the creator of all." She then posed a reflective question. Was the creation of Earth's beings also destined? Silence ensued as the four pondered the gravity of past events. Anu declared, "While we set fates, destiny itself guides our paths. The Creator's will resonates clearly through his emissary. We are merely his instruments here. Earth is destined for the Earthlings, and our role is to foster and nurture them." Enki concurred, "If such is our purpose here, let us fulfill it earnestly." Thus, the Anunnaki deliberated on the governance of the lands. Recognizing the importance of fostering civilized growth, they resolved to share their knowledge with mankind. They planned city constructions and sacred sites to house themselves, aspiring to establish a sovereignty on Earth akin to that on Nibiru. They would select a human to don the crown and scepter, channeling the Anunnaki's commands to enhance human capabilities and labor. Sacred temples were to be erected to maintain devotion to the Anunnaki, revered as divine beings. These sanctuaries would also serve as centers of learning for secret knowledge aimed at civilizing humanity. Through this grand scheme, the Anunnaki aimed to harness human potential for prosperity and advancement, guiding them towards a promising future enriched with shared wisdom. The decision to divide Earth into 4 regions was made, 3 for humans and 1 reserved exclusively for the Anunnaki. The first region was established in the ancient lands of Eden, designated for Enlil and his offspring. The second region, in the land of the 2 Narrows, was allotted to Enki and his descendants. The third region, isolated from the others, was assigned to Inanna. Lastly, the fourth region, a peninsula known as the Place of the Chariots, was set aside solely for the Anunnaki. Following the allocation of these territories, Anu expressed a desire to reconnect with his grandson Marduk. Recalling his decisions involving Dumuzi and Ningishzida's journey to Nibiru, Anu speculated whether these had incited Marduk's ire, prompting him to reconsider Marduk's punishment. Enlil responded, "Upon your visit to the overseas lands, we shall inform Marduk of your intent to meet." Anu agreed. Before their overseas journey, Anu and Antu toured Eden, observing the ongoing urban developments and the newly planned cities. Enlil voiced concerns about Enki withholding the ME formulas for himself. From his throne, Anu acknowledged Enki's architectural achievements, commending his son for constructing a magnificent domicile atop a platform, enriching those around him with vast knowledge. However, Anu emphasized that such knowledge, hidden within the ME formulas, should be shared with the broader Anunnaki community. Embarrassed by his actions, Enki vowed to distribute the divine knowledge widely. In the days that followed, as Anu and Antu visited various regions by ship, on the 17th day, they returned to Unuki for another night's rest. The next morning, the younger Anunnaki gathered to receive blessings from Anu and Antu. During this assembly, Anu affectionately observed Inanna, and embracing her, he proclaimed, "Heed my words." Announcing to those present, he declared, "Upon our departure, this place shall be bestowed as a dowry to Inanna, and the spacecraft we use to explore Earth shall be her gift." Delighted, Inanna danced and sang, her praises forming hymns to Anu. After bidding farewell to the Anunnaki, Anu and Antu set off. The celestial ship ascended, adorned with gold, marking Anu's visit with a new time count based on Earth years, starting in the age of the bull. Amidst this, Marduk voiced displeasure over his exclusion from recent decisions, particularly Inanna's acquisition of a region following her involvement in Dumuzi's death. Enlil, asserting the finality of these decisions, prompted the Anunnaki to return to Eden. In Eden, the Anunnaki taught humans brick making and city construction, leading to the coexistence of Anunnaki and human cities. Temples rose, dedicated to the Anunnaki, now revered as deities. Anu, deemed celestial, was numbered 60, while other Anunnaki received various numerical designations reflecting their stature. Enlil was assigned the number 50. Ninurta, Enlil's eldest offspring, also received the number 50. Lord Enki was given the rank of 40. Nanar, son of Enlil and Ninlil, was allotted the number 30. Utu, his son and heir, was granted the number 20. Other sons of Anunnaki leaders were assigned numeric values of 10. Anunnaki females and their partners shared ranks of 5. Consequently, construction commenced. Cities were erected, enhancing the symbiosis between humans and Anunnaki. Temples and cities expanded, especially after the temples at Eridu and Nibruki were constructed. The Girsu district in Lagash was established under Ninurta's command, named Eninu, the House of 50, which became Ninurta and his wife Bau's temple. The great black sky bird was protected there by the Supreme Hunter and the Supreme Smiter, weapons left by Anu, ensuring Eninu's protection. In the newly founded Sipar, atop post-flood sediment, a celestial abode was constructed for Utu and his consort Aya, called Ebabar, the Shining House. From there, Utu promulgated justice laws for humanity. In regions where the mud proved unyielding, old plans were abandoned and new sites selected. Close to Shurubak, Adab was erected, housing the temple known as the House of Succor and Healing Knowledge. This became Ninma's sanctuary, where she preserved the ME containing data about the creation of Earthlings. Nana's city featured orderly streets, docks and canals, and was named Urim, later known as Ur. The temple there was called the House of the Throne's Seed, reflecting moonbeams onto the lands. Ishkor returned to the northern mountains, where another temple, the House of Seven Storms, was built. Anu's legacy was passed to Inanna, who received Unukki, later called Uruk. In Eridu, Marduk and Nabu resided in the city of Enki, Eden, without their own city or temple. In the first region, among Eden's lands and cities, Anunnaki began imparting skills and crafts to Earthlings. Fields were irrigated and vessels constructed for river travel. Prosperity filled the land as sheep pens and barns overflowed. The first region was named Sumer, becoming known as the land of the lofty watchers. The Anunnaki decided that Earthlings, known as the black-headed people, needed a city of their own, named Kishi, the city of Scepter. Thus began humanity's royalty in Kishi, echoing Nibiru's royalty. There, Anu and Enlil embedded the heavenly bright object. Ninurta traveled to Eridu, seeking the ME of royalty from Enki, enabling the start of Earthling royalty. Enki granted Ninurta 50 ME, and he appointed the first king, titled Mighty Man. In Kishi, the black-headed people learned mathematics, writing, and beer brewing under Ninurta's supervision, who also taught them oven use and blacksmithing. They constructed wheeled carts and learned justice laws. Songs and praises were dedicated to Ninurta, honored as the constellation of the archer. Meanwhile, in Uruk, Inanna planned her domain's facilities, anticipating the third region's establishment, though other Anunnaki proposed completing the second region first. Dissatisfied, Inanna discovered Ninurta had obtained the ME of royalty in Eridu. She devised a plan, sending her maid Ninshubur to announce her impending visit. Enki's vizier Isimud prepared for Inanna's arrival with sweet wine, beer jugs, and buttered barley cakes. Alone, Inanna entered Enki's abode and was escorted by Isimud to the inner chambers. Stunningly adorned with jewels and a revealing thin dress, Inanna moved elegantly, allowing her robe to display her perfect curves. Enki, captivated by her beauty, shared 2 chalices of sweet wine with her, initiating a beer drinking contest. Laughing, Inanna implored Enki to let her hold the ME in her hands. Enki, overwhelmed by her allure, handed over the ME 7 times. These divine formulas included lordship, royalty, priesthood, writing, dressing with love, warfare, music, song, carpentry, precious metals, and gemstones. During the game, Enki transferred the ME to Inanna, totaling 94 necessary for establishing a civilized kingdom. Entranced by her beauty and their shared drinks, Enki fell asleep. Holding the 94 ME, Inanna boarded her ship and departed for her territories in the 3rd region. When Enki awoke from his profound slumber, he commanded his advisor Isimud, "Seize Inanna and retrieve all the ME, pursue her vessel." Accordingly, Isimud embarked on a quest for Inanna and successfully intercepted her craft near Uruk. He informed Inanna that she must return to Eridu to confront Enki's fury. Consequently, Inanna returned to Eridu, yet she no longer possessed the ME. She had entrusted the ME to her servant Ninshubur, instructing that they be hidden within Anu's abode in Uruk, now her sanctuary. Enki declared emphatically, "By my authority and my father Anu's name, I demand the ME's return. You shall remain captive in my residence until they are restored." Enlil overheard Enki's proclamation and promptly ventured to Eridu to mediate the dispute. Thus, Enki, Enlil, and Inanna convened. Inanna asserted her entitlement to the ME, claiming Enki had given them to her. Enlil inquired, "Is this true?" In a soft voice, Enki admitted, "Yes." Enlil ruled, "Then, after Kishi's era of kingship concludes, sovereignty shall transition to Uruk, within Inanna's territory." Hence, the matter was settled and time would unveil Uruk's future rulers. However, Marduk learned of this resolution and was filled with immense fury. Marduk exclaimed, "I have endured sufficient disgrace." Furiously, he demanded, "I require a city in Eden for myself. I insist Enlil grant me one." Yet Enlil ignored Marduk's plea. Marduk then took matters into his own hands, selecting a site once earmarked for Anu's arrival. Thus, his son Nabu rallied the Igigi from afar to establish a sacred city for Marduk, complete with celestial docks. However, construction issues arose swiftly. Upon their arrival, Marduk's followers discovered an absence of building stones. Marduk demonstrated how to craft bricks and bake them as substitutes for stone. They began constructing a tower intended to touch the heavens. Enlil noticed the endeavor and hastened to the location, attempting to appease Marduk with gentle words. Despite his previous disregard for Marduk's request, Enlil could not deter Marduk and Nabu from their project. In Nibruki, Enlil convened with his progeny to deliberate their response. Enlil announced, "Marduk is erecting an unauthorized celestial gateway, an ascent to the heavens, assigning this monumental task to mortals." Ninurta responded, "We must not permit this to proceed. This sinister scheme must be thwarted, now." All concurred with Ninurta. Thus, under cover of darkness, the Enlilites approached and bombarded the unfinished tower with fire and brimstone, destroying the entire encampment. Enlil resolved and declared, "Henceforth I will fracture humanity's unity and confound their thoughts." Previously, all humans shared one language and understood one another. From that moment forward, he vowed to scatter their languages, ensuring mutual incomprehension. That marked the 310th year since the commencement of Earth's chronological record. Subsequently, diverse languages and scripts emerged across regions, rendering mutual understanding impossible. Thus, during this era, 23 monarchs governed Kishi, the city of the scepter, for 408 years. Additionally, in Kishi, the esteemed King Etana ascended to the heavens on a celestial voyage. As decreed by Enlil, leadership transitioned to Uruk during the appointed time. the prominent celestial object of Kishi, relocated to Inanna's domains in the primary region. Songs of praise were sung for Inanna, the radiant goddess, adorned in magnificence, revered both in the heavens and on earth, sanctified by Anu's affection. 7 times, Inanna grasped the Me, the sacred powers suitable for royal and priestly authority. Acclaim Inanna, the custodian of the grand Me and holy incantations. That was the 409th year since the initiation of Earth's chronological record. Subsequently, the reign directly transferred to Uruk in the first region. At its inception, a high priest was appointed to the Eanna temple abode. Meanwhile, Marduk journeyed to the land of the Two Narrows, designated as the second region, hopeful of ruling those territories upon their formal establishment. Upon his arrival, he was greeted by Ningishzida, who briefed him on regional affairs. Ningishzida, aided by Anunnaki descendants who had integrated with Earth's inhabitants, administered the lands. Marduk quickly realized his decrees had been nullified and demanded an explanation. He accused Ningishzida of destroying the hidden and the occult, and blamed him for the fate of Horus, who was exiled to a desolate and arid place, far from everything and everyone. The two brothers incited a fierce quarrel, igniting a bitter conflict. Marduk declared, "You were my rival, and henceforth you will only serve as my aid. If you wish to rebel, you must depart to another realm." Consequently, for 350 years, Marduk and Ningishzida contested in the land of the Two Narrows. During this era, the region descended into turmoil. It was then that Enki directed Ningishzida to venture to distant lands. Enki proclaimed, "For the sake of harmony, you must journey to other territories." Thus, Ningishzida relocated to the land across the seas with a group of adherents. By this time, 650 years had passed in Earth's chronology. Upon his arrival in the new territories, he adopted the title of the Winged Serpent. He became revered as Quetzalcoatl, and there he initiated a new chronology. Meanwhile, back in the land of the Two Narrows, the second region was founded over Marduk's dominion. In the records of the first region, it was named Magan, land of the cascading river, also known as ancient Egypt. But by the inhabitants of the second region, amidst linguistic confusion, it was termed Hemta, the dark brown land. The Anunnaki were thereafter known as Neteru, the guardian watchers. Marduk began to be worshipped as the illuminated one and was called Ra. Enki, now revered as the creator, was worshipped as Ptah, and Ningishzida was commemorated as Tehuti, or Thoth, the divine measurer. Considering erasing his brother Ningishzida's Thoth memory, Marduk, Ra, resolved to alter the Sphinx's visage with an image resembling his son Osiris. Additionally, Ra altered the chronological system from 60s to 10s. He divided the year into 12 segments, shifted the celestial focus from the moon to the sun, and unified the cities that Thoth had separated. The northern and southern cities became one city of the crown. At the confluence of the two lands and the great river, Ra established the city of the scepter. Thereafter, Ra appointed a king, a scion of the Anunnaki. This was Mena, the monarch whose reign inaugurated the first dynasty of Egyptian pharaohs. He named the city Mena-Nefer, or Memphis, translating to the beauty of Mena. He enhanced the city's splendor, surpassing Kishi in the first region. To honor his forebears, Ra constructed a sacred city, and in tribute to the king of Nibiru, he named the city Anu. Atop a platform, he erected a temple shelter for his father Enki, Ptah. At its pinnacle, within a towering spire reaching towards the heavens, Ra placed the upper segment of his celestial vessel. This was named Ben-Ben, the craft in which he had journeyed from the planet of countless years. On New Year's Day, the king, acting as high priest, conducted the rituals, accessing the Room of Stars only on this day, and placed offerings before the Benben. Enki, Ptah, was delighted and to enhance the second region, bestowed all forms of me to Ra. Father and son converged. Enki, Ptah, inquired of Marduk, Ra, his offspring, "What do I know that you do not?" Thus, he imparted all manner of wisdom to Marduk, Ra, except for the knowledge to resurrect the deceased. Enki, Ptah, bequeathed to Marduk, Ra, the constellation of the Ram, Aries, thus elevating him among the 12 celestials. Ptah managed the flow of water from the great river Hapi, benefiting Ra and his populace. Prosperity swiftly followed in the fertile lands, and the population of men and livestock flourished. With the ascendancy of the second region, leaders were inspired to establish the third region. They decreed it would become the domain of Inanna, as promised. Subsequently, a celestial constellation was assigned to her, elevating her among the 12 supreme Anunnaki and the grand celestial deities. Previously, she had shared the Gemini station with her sibling Utu, but henceforth, by Ninma's gift, the constellation of the Maiden was allocated to Inanna. This occurred in the year 860, by Earth's count. Thus, Inanna received renewed honor. The third region, situated far east, beyond 7 mountain ranges, was named Zamush, the land of 60. There was also Aratta, the kingdom of the forests, nestled in a valley beside a great winding river. Here, the inhabitants cultivated grains and reared cattle across expansive plains, constructing 2 cities from mud bricks, well stocked with granaries. By the command of Enlil, Lord Enki, the sage, introduced a new language and script for the third region, crafting a tongue previously unknown to humanity. Yet, the advanced technologies, the ME, of civilized realms were withheld from this region. Enki decreed, "Let Inanna bestow upon the new region what she garnered for Uruk." Subsequently, Inanna designated a shepherd chief, reminiscent of her cherished Dumuzi. Inanna journeyed between Uruk and Aratta in her spaceship, traversing over mountains and valleys, cherishing the precious stones of Zamush and transporting pure lapis lazuli to Uruk. During this era, Enmerkar ruled Uruk as its second monarch, broadening its domains and glorified by Inanna. Coveting Aratta's wealth, he dispatched a messenger demanding their treasures as tributes. Crossing 7 mountain ranges, through deserts and rain-soaked paths, the emissary conveyed Enmerkar's demands to Aratta's king, who could not comprehend his speech. Aratta's king then presented a wooden scepter with an inscribed plea for sharing their ME, hoping for peace, and sent grains to Uruk via donkeys. However, the inscribed message on the scepter baffled everyone in Uruk. Enmerkar examined it from every angle, finally planting it in his garden. Years passed, and from the scepter, a tree sprouted. Seeking guidance, Enmerkar consulted his grandfather Utu, who, through Nisaba, advised him to inscribe his message in Aratta's language on a clay tablet. The emissary, Banda, returned to Aratta, delivering a stern ultimatum: submit or face war. Yet Aratta's king proclaimed, "Inanna remains with us. Aratta will not yield to Uruk. If war is Uruk's wish, let our warriors clash." However, reconsidering, he proposed, "Let's trade our treasures amicably. Offer us your ME, and Aratta will reciprocate with our wealth." Banda journeyed back with a peaceful message, neither submission nor battle. Tragically, he collapsed en route, succumbing to illness, his spirit departing. His companions, unable to revive him, left him on Mount Hurum. Thus, Uruk never gained Aratta's treasures, nor did Aratta receive Uruk's ME, and peace eluded the third region. Meanwhile, Inanna coveted other domains, neglecting those assigned to her. Though she possessed Anu's regal abode in Uruk and the lands of the third region, it was not sufficient for her. Inanna was ever restless, shuttling between Uruk and Aratta. She grieved her beloved Dumuzi's demise, her yearning for love unfulfilled. Soaring, she glimpsed Dumuzi's visage in the sunbeams, beckoning her. By night, he materialized in dreams, vowing his return. Dumuzi then promised her dominion over the Two Narrows land. As she indulged her dream's portents, Inanna constructed a residence in Uruk named Gigunu, a sanctuary for nocturnal delights, where young warriors visited on their wedding nights. There they encountered seductive whispers and caresses. Inanna foresaw blissful futures, envisioning Dumuzi with them. Come morning, these young heroes lay deceased in her pleasure chamber. It was then that Banda, previously thought dead, reappeared alive in Uruk. Inanna proclaimed a miracle, a blessing from Utu, and Banda, a descendant of Utu. Realizing the miracle's power was bestowed upon her in Uruk, Inanna rejoiced, declaring Dumuzi's return. She devised a test. Banda, freshly bathed, donned a sash and mantle. Inanna summoned Dumuzi to her flower-adorned bed, envisioning the miracle. Charmed by Inanna, Banda survived the night, and joyfully, Inanna acclaimed her newfound immortality, assuming the title of goddess. Nanna and Ningal, her parents, disapproved of her claim. Enlil and Ninurta were unsettled, and Utu, her brother, was perplexed. Enki and Nima debated the resurrection's impossibility. In Sumer, the populace celebrated their fortune, proclaiming the gods' presence, their mastery over death, and their gift of eternal life. This news spread far and wide. In Uruk, Lugal succeeded Enmerkar as the great man, marrying the goddess Ninsun, a descendant of Enlil. Their son Gilgamesh, a goddess's offspring, later ascended Uruk's throne. Over time, Gilgamesh pondered life and death, querying his mother about the mortal fate of Anunnaki descendants. Ninsun advised that on Earth he would face mortality, but longevity awaited on Nibiru. Persistently, Ninsun requested Utu transport Gilgamesh to Nibiru. Eventually, Utu consented, directing him to the landing place. Ninma crafted a double for Gilgamesh, Enkidu, created by Enki without womb or blood. Together, they journeyed to the landing place, confronting a fire-spitting monster guardian, whom they swiftly defeated. Searching further, they encountered the Bull of Heaven, a beast of Enlil, which chased them to Uruk's gates where Enkidu triumphed. Enlil, learning of the bull's defeat, lamented the ominous sign. For slaying the bull, Enkidu faced death by water, while Gilgamesh, guided by Ninsun and Utu, was absolved. Still seeking Nibiru's longevity, Utu allowed Gilgamesh's quest to continue, leading him to Tilmun, the Anunnaki's secret, forbidden fourth region. There, through subterranean passages, he discovered a gem-filled garden and met Ziusudra, who shared the deluge's tales and the secret to long life, a unique plant that preserved his and his wife's youth. This plant, a gift from Enki with Enlil's blessing, was secured by Gilgamesh, who dove for it, binding stones to his feet. Securing the youth plant, he hurried back through the tunnels to Uruk. Exhausted, he slept, unaware a snake was lured by the plant's scent, stealing it. Awakening to find the plant gone, Gilgamesh realized his quest for immortality was in vain. He wept, then faced mortality in Uruk. After Gilgamesh, 7 kings reigned in what became known as Erech in the Bible, marking Uruk's legacy as the land of heroes and demigods. In 1000 BCE, royalty shifted to Ur, the city of Nannar and Ningal, as Marduk, Ra, in the second region, closely monitored developments. Dissatisfied, Inanna schemed further, awaiting Dumuzi's return to fulfill her dream of a powerful reign. Thus, Marduk felt compelled to address the allure of resurrection and immortality, declaring himself a formidable god. sharing secrets presumed known only to Gilgamesh and Uruk's demigods. Marduk, thus, Ra sought to ensure his regional kings also received these teachings, instructing them to face their tombs oriented toward the east. He then dictated a voluminous tome to the scribe priests, detailing the rites and passages necessary for the journey beyond. Life into the afterlife. It explained the way to Duat, the abode of celestial vessels. Duat was the ancient Egyptian term for the fourth district, located on the Sinai Peninsula. Ra, also known as Marduk, further imparted the method of eastward tomb construction. He also taught the ascent via a celestial staircase leading to the eternal sphere. He emphasized that one must partake of the elixir of youth from the plant of life until contentment is achieved, clarifying the god's descent to earth. Ra unfolded the divine wisdom to the priests, proclaiming, "Gold is the essence of divinity." Subsequently, he demonstrated gold extraction techniques, advocating for expeditions to the Abzu and the Nether Realm for its acquisition. Under his command, his kings and generals conquered alien territories. Marduk, challenging his siblings' lands, incited complaints to Enki, their father, known as Ptah in ancient Egypt. Despite his father's counsel, Ra's ambition was undeterred. He aimed to dominate the four regions. Defiantly, he declared, "The earth is mine to govern completely." Following the transition of royal power from Uruk to Ur, home to Nannar and Ningal, the city rejoiced under Nannar's divine grace, acknowledged as the moon god and revered according to his celestial rank of 30. He instituted 12 annual festivals, aligning each with a lunar month and dedicating each to one of the 12 major Anunnaki gods. This practice proliferated throughout the first region, among both significant and lesser deities. Sanctuaries and temples were erected, allowing direct worship by the populace. The first region saw the spread of civilization from Sumer to neighboring areas, with local sovereigns acting as virtuous guardians. Artisans, farmers, shepherds, and weavers traded goods widely, supported by laws ensuring justice and honoring agreements in trade, marriage, and separation. Schools flourished, with youths studying scribes' recorded hymns, sayings, and wisdom. Prosperity and joy were widespread, though disputes and invasions persisted. Meanwhile, Inanna, aboard her celestial craft, traversed various lands, enjoying time with Utu near the Upper Sea, and visiting her uncle Ishkur, whom she affectionately called Dudu, meaning beloved. During her journeys, she embraced the local speech, finding it melodious and learning it swiftly. The locals named her Ishtar after the planet Lahamu and renamed Uruk in their tongue, referring to Ishkur as Adad. Nannar was recognized as Sin, and the city of Urim was now known as Ur. Ki-Engi received the new name Sumer, the land of the lofty watchers, with Utu being called Shamash, and Enlil honored as Father Enlil, while Nibiru was referred to as Nippur. In stark contrast, the second region under Ra's rule lacked diversity, as he sought solitary dominion. Ra declared his primacy as the eldest of the celestial beings, the progenitor on earth from the earliest epochs. He insisted that hymns be sung to celebrate his eternal lordship over all deities, styling himself as the Peerless One, the solitary and unique supreme deity. Ra asserted, "I am Ra, supreme above all gods," attributing to himself the powers and characteristics of the gods. He compared himself to Enlil in sovereignty, to Ninurta in agriculture and warfare, to Adad in storms, to Nannar in illuminating the night, and to Utu as Shamash, presiding over the underworld like Nergal. Asserting his dominion over precious metals, he claimed discovery of gold, asserting mastery over numbers like Ningish Zida. The heavens themselves, he proclaimed, testified to his magnificence. Such declarations deeply unsettled the Anunnaki leaders. Marduk's siblings sought intervention from their father, Enki, while Nergal conveyed his concerns to Ninurta. Enki, facing his son's audacious claims, challenged him, remarking on the unprecedented nature of his assertions. Marduk, undeterred, insisted, "It's the heavens. They proclaim my ascendancy." He interpreted celestial signs as heralding the age of the Ram, his age, marking a significant celestial transition. Yet, from his base in Eridu, Enki observed the celestial panorama, particularly noting the position of the constellations at the dawn of the new year. He, along with Enlil and Nannar from Nippur and Ur, confirmed that the celestial age remained that of the bull, contradicting Marduk's claims. Despite this, Marduk, supported by his son Nabu, outside his territories, he dispatched envoys to declare that his era had arrived. The Anunnaki chiefs called upon Ningishida to instruct the populace in celestial observations. With his insight, Ningishida devised megalithic structures, which Ninurta and Ishkur aided in constructing. Across established regions, both near and distant, they educated the populace on celestial observations, demonstrating that the sun continued to rise in the constellation of the bull. During those times, after proclaiming themselves deities, the Anunnaki now relied on the backing of humanity. Enki observed these developments with keen interest and melancholy. He contemplated how destiny was being altered. In the first region, the Anunnaki opted to consolidate the lands under a single sovereign, favoring a warrior king. Consequently, Inanna was tasked with locating the appropriate man for this role. Inanna recommended a warrior to Enlil, whom she had discovered and cherished during her journeys. He was the progeny of a commander overseeing 4 garrisons named Arbakad. His mother held the position of a high priestess. Enlil bestowed upon him a scepter and crown. He was christened Sargon I, righteous ruler. Similar to Nibiru, a new capital city was founded to unite the territories, known as Agade, the unified city, situated near Kishi. Agade amalgamated the lands of Sumer and Akkad, with Enlil endowing King Sargon with authority. Inanna escorted her warriors, armed for battle. All regions from the lower to the upper sea heeded Sargon's command. Consequently, his forces were stationed along the borders of the 4th region for its defense. Marduk, Ra, persistently monitored the maneuvers of Inanna and Sargon. The prevailing sentiment was caution, prompting Sargon to make a decisive move. He journeyed to the site where Marduk attempted to erect a tower reaching the heavens and proclaimed it a sacred site for Agade. He spoke of positioning the bright heavenly object there. In haste, Marduk traveled to the 1st region, accompanied by Nabu and his adherents. Upon reaching the tower's site, he declared, "I alone am the rightful owner of this sacred land, and through me, a gateway for the gods shall be established." Marduk's stance was firm, and he directed his followers to divert the nearby river. They erected embankments and walls at the tower site, constructing a new abode for Marduk. It was named Esagil, the house for the supreme god. Nabu christened it Babylon, the gateway of the gods, in tribute to his father, at the core of Aden. Thus, Marduk established his presence at the heart of the 1st region, within Aden. With this, Inanna's fury was unbridled. Armed, her followers assaulted Marduk's followers. The bloodshed was unprecedented on Earth. Nergal journeyed to Babylon to meet his sibling Marduk, urging him to depart Babylon for the populace's welfare. Nergal invited Marduk to accompany him in sky observation, to which Marduk consented. Consequently, he traversed various lands, observing celestial signs. Marduk, recognized as Ra in the 2nd region, acquired another moniker. He was dubbed Amun, the Unseen, for he governed yet remained absent. Temporarily, Inanna's wrath subsided, as she closely monitored the two progeny of Sargon who succeeded him. Later, upon the throne of Agade, Sargon's grandson, known as Naram-Sin, ascended. Those were different times. In those periods, Enlil and Ninurta were not present in the first region. They had ventured to territories beyond the seas. And in the second region, Ra was also absent, having traveled to other lands. Thus, Inanna seized the chance to claim all power for herself. She commanded Naram-Sin to conquer all lands. She directed the king to attack ancient Egypt and Meluha, Nubia, domains of Marduk, also known as Ra and Amun, the unseen. During those times, Naram-Sin committed the sacrilege of traversing the fourth region with an army of mortals. He also invaded ancient Egypt and attempted to enter the sacred Ikur, the house resembling a mountain. Enlil was incensed by his sacrileges and transgressions. Subsequently, he cursed Naram-Sin and all of Agade. Naram-Sin succumbed to a scorpion's sting, and by Enlil's entire Agade was obliterated. That year marked 1500 on Earth's calendar. In the second region, under Marduk, Ra, known as Amun, the Hidden One, the monarchy, disintegrated. Chaos and confusion took hold. Following Agade's eradication, the first region too experienced chaos and confusion. In the first region, the monarchy faced turmoil. Before the deities, cities slowly came under human governance and management. Uruk, Lagash, Ur, and Kish, Isin, and further remote and widespread locales, the monarchy was shifting. Enlil sought Anu's counsel, assigning the monarchy to Nannar. Thus, for a third instance, the monarchy was re-established in Ur. To govern, Nannar appointed a just shepherd of men. That was Ur-Nammu. Ur-Nammu was an eminent leader. He promoted equality across the territories, ceased violence and conflict. Throughout all regions, prosperity flourished. During that period, Enlil experienced a dream vision at night. Similar to Enki's earlier vision, Enlil too witnessed. It was the visage of a luminous man, as radiant as the heavens. He stood by Enlil's bedside. As he drew near, Enlil noticed and recognized Galzu, the white-haired figure. In his left hand, he clutched a lapis lazuli tablet, depicting the celestial sky. The sky was partitioned by the 12 constellation signs, recognizable to Enlil. Galzu indicated a change. The bull's sign was overlooked, and thrice Galzu gestured toward the ram's constellation. In the dream vision, Galzu told Enlil, "A period of kindness and peace will give way to evil and bloodshed. Marduk's ram will supplant Enlil's bull in the 3 heavenly divisions. The self-proclaimed supreme god will usurp dominance on earth. By destiny's decree, a disaster unprecedented will occur, and like during the flood, a just and suitable man must be selected. Through him and via his lineage, his descendants will endure, and civilized mankind will persist, as decreed by the Creator of all." Upon awakening from the dream vision, no tablet lay beside the bed. Enlil pondered, was it a divine message or merely my imagination? Enlil questioned himself. He kept the revelation to himself, not disclosing it to his offspring, or even his spouse, Ninlil. Among Nibruki's temple priests, Enlil inquired about celestial scholars. He questioned about Tirhu, also known as Terah, an oracle priest, whom the high priest identified as a descendant of Ibru and Arbakad, belonging to the 6th generation of Nibruki's priests, and having wed the royal princesses of Ur's kings. Enlil instructed Terah, proceed to Nanna's temple in Ur, and from there monitor the celestial timing in the skies. 72 Earth years correspond to 1 celestial segment. Carefully track the passage of 3 such segments. While Enlil reflected on his dream vision and its portents, Terah departed for Nanna's temple, and Marduk journeyed from one territory to another. Marduk aimed to gather followers, proclaiming his supremacy. In the territories of the Upper Sea and along Sumer's borders, Nabu, Marduk's son, journeyed stirring residents to seize the fourth region. Among the western and eastern populace, conflicts erupted. Kings mobilized armies, and trade caravans ceased. City fortifications were erected for defense. Enlil observed all with intense focus and awareness. He realized Galzu's forecasts were manifesting. He acknowledged the need to make a decision. Enlil scrutinized Terra and his descendants. This lineage seemed meritorious, and from it should be chosen the man designated by Galzu. Without revealing his dream vision, Enlil advised his son Nanar, "Found a city modeled after Ur, situated between the rivers. It shall be a sanctuary from Ur, and therein you and Ningal shall dwell. Within its center, erect a sacred temple, appointing Terra as chief priest." Following his father's command, Nanar founded the city of Haran in Arbakad's lands to position Terra as the chief priest within its hallowed temple, accompanied by his family. When 2 heavenly portions of the prophesied 3 had elapsed, Terra traveled to Haran. At that juncture, Ur-Nammu, the delight of Ur, tumbled from his chariot and succumbed to his mortal fate in the western regions. Upon Ur's throne, Shulgi assumed leadership. He possessed a warrior's spirit and was fervent about combat. In Nibruki, he crowned himself high priest. He sought refuge within Inanna's embrace in Uruk, gathering mountain warriors unswayed by Nana to join his ranks. With this army, he breached the sanctity of mission control, advancing into the western territories. Upon entering the fourth region, he proclaimed himself ruler over all 4 regions. Enlil, incensed, convened with Enki, who declared, "Your domain's leaders have overstepped every boundary." Enlil responded, "Marduk is the source of our woes." Concealing his prophetic dreams, Enlil then focused on Terra. Terra's eldest, Ibru, also known as Abraham, was a prince adept in sacred mysteries. Enlil tasked Abraham with safeguarding the sacred sites to ensure the celestial chariots could ascend and descend unhindered. Shortly after Abraham's departure from Haran, Marduk, having roamed each city and region, arrived there, witnessing the defilement and conquest by Enlil's rulers. He saw this as the precursor to a new epoch, a new order, and from Haran, at the edge of Sumer, Marduk prepared his ultimate attack. 24 Earth years had elapsed since Marduk's arrival in Haran. At that moment, through a temple oracle's message, he realized his time had come. Tearfully, Marduk summoned all the deities, declaring, "O gods of Haran, O mighty judges, behold my secrets. Wrapped by my belt, I remember. I am Marduk, a formidable deity. In my realm, I am Ra, exiled for my misdeeds, banished to the highlands. I have traversed numerous lands, from sunrise to sunset. I reached Ishkur's domain. Residing in Haran for 24 years, I sought guidance at its temple. The temple oracle announced, 'Your exile is over. O mighty fate deciders, allow my return to my city. Let me reclaim my temple Esagil, and from there appoint a king in Babylon. Let all Anunnaki gods assemble at my abode and accept my pact.' The Anunnaki were troubled and alarmed. Enlil summoned them all for deliberation. The assembly was tense, opposition to Marduk and Nabu unanimous. In the midst of heated accusations and rebukes, tension mounted. Enki interjected, advising, "None can avert what looms. Embrace Marduk's ascendancy." Yet Enki's counsel only irked Enlil further, who contended, "If the age of the ram approaches, prevent its reach to the heaven-earth link. Obliterate the celestial chariot site." The collective resolved to destroy the site except Enki, who dissented yet again. Thus, the earth's decision was relayed to Anu, who echoed it back. As Enki departed, he lamented, "What was fated will falter due to your ruinous choice." To execute this grim task, Ninurta of Enlil's line and Nergal of Enki's were chosen. As the divine council concluded, Enki, though isolated in his stance, felt an inner tranquility. Unbeknownst to him, Enlil harbored two secrets: the prophetic vision of Galzu and the concealed location of the weapons of terror. From Alalu, being the first Anunnaki to arrive on Earth, Alalu used powerful weapons to get through the hammered bracelet. After arriving on Earth, he hid them away in an undisclosed location, deep in a cave, with only Enlil knowing. Enki could scarcely fathom that their prolonged terrestrial sojourn would incite a disaster unprecedented on this globe. Without Enki's knowledge, Enlil disclosed to Ninurta and Nergal the concealed whereabouts of the weapons of terror. He guided them to the mountain hiding them, revealing their presence within an earthly hollow and instructing on their proper use. Before their departure to the concealed site, Enlil cautioned them, prior to employing the weapons of terror, evacuate the celestial chariot site of all Anunnaki. The cities must remain intact, and the populace must survive. In his celestial vehicle, Nergal sped to the secret site, while Ninurta's departure was delayed by his father. Enlil sought a private discussion with his son, informing Ninurta of his dream vision of Galzu and his decision regarding Abraham. Enlil expressed concerns about Nergal's judgment, urging, "Ensure the cities are spared. Alert Abraham about the weapons of terror." Meanwhile, Nergal, having reached the weapon's secret location, programmed the ME to activate the weapons of terror. He assigned each a distinctive name. The first he dubbed the one without rival, the second, the blazing flame, the third, the one who with terror crumbles, the fourth, mountain melter, the fifth, wind that the rim of the world seeks, the sixth, the one who above and below no one spares, and the seventh, laden with lethal poison, he, named the vaporizer of living things, followed his father's instructions and ventured to the clandestine arsenal of terror. Arriving, he found Nergal prepared to unleash devastation. Desiring vengeance, Nergal proclaimed, "I'll slay the son and obliterate the father. Their desired lands shall vanish, and I'll demolish the sinful cities." Ninurta questioned, "Nergal, shall you also obliterate the just alongside the wicked?" Nergal responded, "The commands of Enlil are explicit. The Anunnaki's verdict is also known to me." The pair then awaited Enlil's directive for 7 days and nights. Meanwhile, Marduk, wielding arms, returned to Babylon, asserting dominance before his adherents. This aligned with Enlil's plan, a prelude to the cataclysm. The year was 1736 by earthling reckoning. On the destined day, Enlil signaled Ninurta, who then headed to Mount Mashu with Nergal. Observing from the skies, Ninurta surveyed the mountain and the plains of the fourth region. With a solemn heart, he signaled to Nergal to hold position, then unleashed the inaugural weapon of terror. Instantly, Mount Mashu's summit shattered, its core liquefying. The next assault targeted the celestial ship's place, where, with the radiance of 7 suns, the plane's rocks burst open. The earth trembled and gave way. The skies then darkened. The ship's plane covered in scorched, shattered stones. Only 3 tree trunks remained standing amidst the once lush forests. From his celestial vessel, Ninurta declared, "It is accomplished." Thus, the lands Marduk and Nabu coveted were rendered desolate. Nergal, wishing to be known as the Annihilator, adopted the title Era for his actions. He soared along the King's Road to the verdant valley of 5 cities. There, where Nabu was converting the populace, Era unleashed terror from above, sequentially destroying the cities. The valley swiftly descended into ruin, consumed by fire and sulfur, all life therein vaporized. These formidable arms brought down mountains and shattered the sea's barrier, causing waters to flood the valley, whereupon steam ascended into the heavens. Aloft on his vessel, Nergal declared, "It is accomplished," and within, Era felt his vengeance sated. Yet, as Ninurta and Nergal surveyed their grim work, confusion took them. What followed was the skies darkening, then the storm's onset. Whirlwinds swirled within a dark cloud, birthing the evil wind, which plunged the day into twilight. As night fell, its dreadful splendor obscured the moon. By dawn, a dense storm wind surged from the upper sea, carrying the dark cloud eastward toward populated lands. The lethal cloud swept across, mercilessly exterminating all life. Ninurta and Nergal alerted Enki and Enlil, warning of the relentless, evil wind. Enlil and Enki then urgently advised the Sumerian deities, "Flee to the heavens." The people's attempts to escape were futile. The evil wind's grasp was inescapable. Like a spectre, it pervaded every city, passing through the thickest barriers as if they were mere water. Those sheltered indoors were inevitably overtaken. Thus, the streets lay littered with bodies. Survivors foamed at the mouth before succumbing. The evil wind continued its relentless journey across all terrains, leaving no life in its wake. The waters turned toxic, and vegetation withered from Eridu to Sipar. In the second region, southward from Babylon, the evil wind wreaked havoc, sparing only the sacred city from where Marduk ruled. There, life persisted as though untouched by the calamity. Following the great calamity, Enki and Enlil convened to dissect the event's aftermath. Enki observed, "Babylon's endurance through the great calamity is surely a heavenly signal. Babylon's survival confirms Marduk's fated rise to power." Enlil countered, "Indeed, it was the divine will of the creator of everything." Enlil then shared a prophetic dream vision from Galzu, prompting Enki to ask, "If you were aware, why did you not halt the deployment of the weapons of terror?" Enlil, visibly upset, explained, "Brother, it was evident. Since your earthly arrival, despite recurrent hindrances to our mission, we always devised solutions. This led to the creation of humans, which solved many problems, but also initiated numerous unforeseen issues. Upon mastering celestial movements and defining star constellations, could anyone predict destiny's influence or separate our chosen paths from inescapable destinies? Could anyone discern truth in omens or prophecies? Thus, I kept Galzu's prophecy to myself. I pondered, are these the true words of the Creator's messenger, or merely my illusion? Hence, I thought, let what must occur simply occur. Enki, acknowledging his words, reflected, "The first region lies devastated, the second in turmoil, the third injured, and the celestial ship's place is gone." This was indeed what transpired, Enlil affirmed. Thus, it was the Creator's will, and thus remains our earthly mission's outcome, precisely as seeded by Marduk's ambitions. So, let him inherit the consequences of his actions. Let the 50th rank, meant for Ninurta, be given to Marduk. Let him assert dominance over the ravaged regions. As for Ninurta and myself, we'll no longer intervene. We're bound for lands across the seas, continuing our gold quest for Nibiru till our endeavors conclude. Enki absorbed his words, then mused. Maybe outcomes would differ had we not used the terror weapons. Enlil responded, and had we ignored Galzu's advice against returning to Nibiru, what then? Had we ceased the Earth mission following the Anunnaki's initial revolt? The brothers contemplated. Enki declared, "I acted as I did, and you acted as you did. The past is irreversible. Is there not a lesson here? Isn't Earth's history a mirror of Nibiru's? Doesn't it suggest our future, predicting whether humans, made in our likeness, might echo our triumphs and failures? Enlil, silent, stood to depart. Enki extended a hand, saying, "Let us part as brothers, as comrades who've weathered many trials on an alien world." Enlil reciprocated, embracing him. Enki queried, "Shall we meet again on Earth or Nibiru?" Enlil cryptically retorted, "Was Galzu correct? Would death greet us if we return to Nibiru?" With that, Enlil exited. Left alone, Enki settled into reflection on the events from their inception on Nibiru to the present on Earth, filled with doubts. Was all preordained or shaped by specific choices, he wondered. If cosmic and terrestrial cycles govern, could history recur? Is our past a blueprint for our future? Will humans mimic the Anunnaki? Will Earth experience Nibiru's history? Should the first comer be the last to depart? Overwhelmed by such thoughts and plagued by uncertainty, Enki resolved, all that transpired must be documented, from Nibiru's beginnings to today on Earth, and let future generations, at a destined time, peruse this record to decode past prophecies and envision their future. Let the future assess the past. Thus, Enki awaited the right moment. On the 17th day of the second month, 7 years post-calamity, he summoned 2 emissaries, designating a scribe from Eridu, Endupsar, son of Udbar, as his chosen recorder. He instructed the emissaries to escort Endupsar via a small vessel to Magan's ancient Egyptian gates amidst the river of Magan. There, across 40 days and nights, Endupsar transcribed all data onto 14 tablets, appending his personal testimony. Thus, survivor Endupsar, having eluded Eridu's destruction, received Enki's blessing of longevity. Through Endupsar's hands, Lord Enki's narrations were immortalized on the tablets. Not a word was omitted, none concealed, and his narrations traversed time and space until they reached us. So concludes the epic, and thus Zechariah Sitchin translated and transformed these tales from Sumerian tablets into the Lost Book of Enki.